I actually love sitting on the phone.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, testing. Should work.
What? Let me ask Mayor if he wants the whole council.
I think it's.
Can you say that again?
That you'll prompt the mayor at some level when these guys show up. I could coordinate with you, and then you could prompt them a little bit.
Yeah.
Police commissioners are here, and you can just really all you gotta do is read.
So this mic will work for when you're down there. And then for the photo, do you want all of council? Like, how do you want the photo for the board and commission recognition? Just you with all of them? Is it just you with each one? I don't know if we're gonna do photo. Would we do a photo? No, we don't need to do the photo. Well, do you want one? How would we do it? You with all the members? Or just each member as they come up? All come up for at the end? Without a picture? Okay. Yeah, but I would do. You're gonna do a photo, picture with these guys. Yes. Okay.
Testing, 1, 2.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. First up, first agenda item on the line is a study session topic for, City Attorney Tamara Niles will be present to solicit guidance on a procedure to review city charter. Good evening.
Good evening. To provide some background on this issue, the Inglewood City Charter was adopted in 1958 and it's been amended 22 times. The light is on. I could talk louder and closer to the microphone. I think my heels are too high. That's my issue tonight. So the adoption of the charter by public vote created a home rule city that authorizes us to make our own laws versus those that are created by state legislature and contained within statute. Charters adopted in this time period around 1958 are very detailed, provide very detailed requirements to cities. Our charter can also only be revised by a vote of the citizens. During my review, I think I had a 90-day review, City Council discussed with me the need to look at our city charter to determine whether certain provisions need to be revised. We know some things are out of date. For example, the charter anticipates, because it was adopted in 1958, that we will only meet in person at a certain time, at a certain location. But what we saw during COVID is that's not required to have an effective meeting of an elected body. So on December 13th, 2021, I presented a very expedited schedule and procedure to consider charter revisions. But at that time, City Council indicated that it was too fast, too expedited. So I took the concerns that City Council expressed during that time, and we're addressing them tonight to look at alternative procedures that would be acceptable to City Council. So my goal tonight is to address the issues that you raised back in December, and then to solicit your input and obtain a consensus as to what type of procedure you would like to see so that we can bring forward legislation formally implementing that procedure. As I discussed, I apparently jumped the gun a little bit. We know that the current charter does have provisions that need to be revised, specifically virtual meetings. Current city charter is also inflexible. For example, after an election, new council members take office at 8 p.m., which required us to start an earlier meeting, have a reception, and then wait until 8 p.m. After this last election. Charters don't have to be that specific. They can provide a specific day, and then we could decide, for example, what time or what procedure we actually follow for new council members to take office. Modern city charters are much more summary. They provide a framework for cities to operate, but they don't provide the detail that we currently have. For example, a modern framework charter could establish the number of times City Council meets per month, but then City Council can decide when, where, and how they meet. And again, it could provide a date council members take office, but then City Council decides what time and what procedure we follow. As I stated, charter amendments must be approved by ballot. It could be a special election or a regular election. Because special elections cost quite a bit of money, I would suggest we stick with the regular election schedule, which is in November. We do have a November 2022 ballot. We also have 2023 and thereafter. So we could follow a procedure whereby we consider some minor housekeeping items that wouldn't be at all controversial, that everyone agrees needs to be updated in November 2022, and consider more robust changes after further study in a later ballot question. So for July 2023, we would have to approve ballot questions July 2023 for the November 2023 ballot. We would have 17 months to establish a process, review the charter, debate potential charter amendments, and get those on the ballot. And there is the actual quotation from our charter regarding amendments. Section 8 states that amendments may be framed and submitted to the electors through petitioning of City Council or by City Council's own initiative. So we have several options, and these are the same options I presented back in December, which City Council on its own initiative can on its own draft and submit ballot questions. City Council could establish a charter commission, which is not required by law to amend the charter, but it would be a more formal process with different commissioners to formulate those ballot questions, or kind of a hybrid of the two where the city appoints a city advisory committee to review the charter and recommend proposed ballot questions. So I wanted to provide some pros and cons for each. If City Council does all the work, you could take the project on yourselves, debate charter amendments yourselves, potentially expedite the process. Cons, however, it could limit citizen input if City Council does it themselves rather than appoint citizens to do the work. And City Council already has such a full workload that adding this onto your full workload already would be a pretty significant endeavor. Charter Commission. The Colorado Constitution requires a charter commission when you're adopting a new charter, but we could voluntarily elect to utilize this formal process. It does provide an independent elected body for consideration of charter revisions, but decisions of a charter commission are binding, so it eliminates City Council's ability to provide input, debate the questions, and give their opinions. It does require an election of the commission. These commissioners are elected by the public, just like City Council members are. So that can be done November 2022 or at a special election at a cost of $36,000, approximately. It can potentially politicize the process because candidates have to run for the Charter Commission. And it's not a process for an amendment envisioned by our current city charter. Then the City Charter Advisory Committee, which City Council could create an ad hoc committee to oversee the revision process, really study our charter, and make recommendations to City Council as to what they think would work best for the city. It does encourage public participation and input, but it allows City Council to maintain its oversight and decision-making because City Council is still the final decision maker, still sets the ballot questions. It does follow City Council precedent for similar projects. For example, we're currently in the middle of a UDC, or Uniform Development Code rewrite, where City Council created a committee. The committee is reviewing it and will bring forward recommendations. And creation and appointment to the committee can be accomplished cheaply by resolution, so it's free, and quickly as well, because it's a resolution. So it just requires one reading and a vote of City Council. But there is no formal election process, so it's not an independent body chosen by the voters. It would instead be chosen by City Council. So the advisory committee decisions, the City Council would set the number of members. A charter commission is 9 members for comparison. The City Council would need to set the procedure for appointment, decide how they're going to do it, whether they advertise, interview, that sort of thing. And City Council also sets the review and recommendation procedure. City Council would also set the schedule for that. So there'd be quite a few decisions to make in that resolution. So I would request direction on how City Council would like to proceed. So the first question I have is whether the majority of council would like to see City Council take on this project, a formal charter commission, or an advisory committee appointed by City Council, and then with formal adoption by City Council. And then once you have that decision, then there's more decisions to make after that.
Thank you, City Attorney. Any questions for members of council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a question related to process. Does Inglewood have a single subject provision which would prohibit us from putting a package, a charter package together and asking it on the ballot as one question when they might be dealing with different issues?
So we are required to only include one subject in an ordinance, which can be very broad. And one subject could be a ballot question to amend the charter. And it could amend the charter in various sections. So in a ballot question can approve various amendments to different charter sections. And I also double checked, we have contacted a consultant to oversee this process through whatever body or procedure City Council would like to utilize. And they agreed with my conclusion that we could have a single ballot question to completely amend the charter.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Member Russell, did you still have a question?
I actually have a comment because under the Charter Commission, and one of the cons was candidates running for the Charter Commission can politicize the process. This is not a process envisioned within the city charter, but I can tell you council appointing can become a political process because when we in the past have appointed, and twice since I've been on city council, there's been a vacant seat on city council, and just it's the division on city council is along political lines as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that I actually think that getting people to run for a position. Now, however, that may be problematic. I'm not going to say that's the solution, but I think you would get people that are very interested. So, thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Noonan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the consultant that you've been working with on this project. Have they indicated the amount of work? I'm trying to kind of get an idea of how much work are we looking at if council were to do it versus if there was a commission or a committee. How many changes are we looking at? What's the time that it would take to do something like this? And do they have any best practices from their experience working with other municipalities?
We talked to several consultants that have done this for other cities, both bringing forward new charters and amending the charters to a more modern framework charter. And they would anticipate if we have a timeline where the ballot question doesn't have to be adopted until July 2023, meeting once per month, first reviewing the charter, then bringing forth specific sections to determine whether it should be changed section by section or whether they would recommend scrapping the whole thing and starting with a completely replacement framework. But they would anticipate just once a month, at least until July 2023 got closer.
Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think, and thank you for the presentation, City Attorney. I think my question is more for City Council. I guess the answer to this, the question of how would we want to go about it, to me comes down to how many changes do we want to make? How big of a deal is this? I think I initially saw it as a few small changes or maybe some medium-sized changes. And if that's the case, then I think the just city council going at it is totally fine with me. If we're doing a whole new charter, then that seems to me to be something for a charter commission. And then I guess if it's something in between, I would say, we could do the advisory committee. That's kind of how I would see that. I would lean towards a modest number. I mean, I don't know that we have, after hearing the small changes that we kind of are aware of already, I don't know that I have big problems with how our charter is currently functioning. And maybe I'm missing something or some others have some other opinion, but I'd be curious what council sees and how big of changes we want to make.
That's a good point. Member Anderson, anybody want to weigh in on Member Anderson's question? Mayor Pro Tem.
I definitely think that we have a charter that could use some refreshing. I also think my leaning here is that this is work that the council should do itself. Barring that, my preference would be an actual elected charter commission as opposed to a citizens working group. I suppose I'd be okay with any of those three options, but number one in my book would be we work through it ourselves. Every study session schedule half an hour to review some provision of the charter, and if we get it resolved that night, then we can put it in the book for later, and if we don't, then we work through it the next session. And we just go through it for the next 2 years until it's ready to go onto the ballot. That would be how I would do it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Woodward.
Yes, I'm wondering if, I would like to see citizens involved in it. And I'm wondering, can we have an advisory committee made up of some appointed council members and the advisory committee? And
Yes.
With that in mind, then the council members could bring it back to the full council on certain questions that were coming up.
The makeup of the, any advisory committee would be solely within your discretion. If you, depending on the number of council members you would want to appoint, it could then become an open meeting of the council under the Open Meetings Act. So if you wanted to go that direction, I would suggest you appoint no more than 2 council members. But that's certainly possible.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would like to see citizen participation in that. I think there's enough involved citizens in the city of Englewood that it would be helpful.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Anderson.
I'm wondering if we're looking at, in Mayor Pro Tem's words, a refresh. To me, that's saying mostly some minor changes, maybe some medium-sized changes. If we could do some combination where we gather citizen input via some public forums, kind of like we're doing with the Title 16. I know there's a steering committee there as well, but the city council could kind of function as a steering committee, and then have a series of topics where we have community forums and people could come in and share their input, do the surveys and all that kind of stuff, gather input as a council, and then have council actually, work through that with the citizen input and make those decisions. That maybe strikes me as a good balance for what we're going after.
Member Noonekamp.
I would support the proposal from Member Anderson. I think that's a nice balance, and I think it allows us to continue working this through at a timely fashion. I would also support getting some of the low-hanging fruit on the ballot this fall, and then continuing to work towards next fall as well.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Any other comments? So I'll start with the one that Member Anderson just brought up. If members of council want to see a hybrid approach of starting with council, then opening it up to members of the public after it's been decided, it sounds like there's three head nods over here. Anybody okay with that process? Member Russell?
So I'm just trying to understand your interpretation of that. So this question is based on that. Are you saying the council would decide what we want and then get citizen input on what we want?
The way that I understand it would be members of council, I think this is a hybrid approach also from what Mayor Pro Tem Ward was asking, where we would discuss certain items during study session. We'd come to, not necessarily an agreement, but we would come with a few ideas of how to change things, then open it up to the public, whether through a open house type of situation where basically members of the public can weigh in on what city council has decided.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a problem with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with council coming up with topics that ought to be discussed. The problem is they elect us, we follow what they want. So I believe that it would be wiser for us to have open town hall meetings where they give their input to us and then we digest that and move on with it. I think that would be more fair and put the citizens in the position that they're in.
I think that's more what I was driving at, is more of coming up with topics that maybe we could present to the public and then making decisions on how we want to word those issues on the ballot after we get the citizen input.
So let me see if I understand this correctly, Member Anderson. Unless Member Russell, did you have something?
I just wanted to say one more thing that along that lines. We could also then solicit input from them on topics that they would like addressed also. But yes, that's what I understood.
Okay. So Member Anderson, if you wouldn't mind, I'm trying to understand the process. So these items will not be discussed openly within study session to begin with?
I guess I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm driving at here, I guess, thinking through the details of how it would work. But I was thinking it would be, we would publicly discuss in a study session topics and even ideas, but wouldn't land anywhere until we brought those topics to a public input, whether it's a public hearing or an open house or a public forum of some kind.
And so
I
City Attorney.
have some thoughts on that. I think first, procedurally, council would have to decide whether we're going to do section by section corrections amendments or look at the wholesale change. To me, that would be decision number one, policy decision for council to make. Then second, there's cleanup items that are easy to make that I don't think anyone would think anything about. I mean, for example, city charter anticipates everyone working for the city in a leadership position is going to be male. Obviously, that's not the case. I think that's when we can all agree that's a cleanup. We can clean up taking out the 8 p.m. That's an easy one. So then there's those that are easy if we decide to do the section by section. But then there's others that may be a policy change, that may be a complete overhaul of how we currently approach an issue. And I think those then you could solicit the public input on those because those are more of a debate. Reasonable minds may differ on those. So I think it's several different steps.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm on board with Member Russell's idea. I think our first meeting should probably be more of an open forum where members of the public who may have ideas about the charter can bring those to us, and then we get our marching orders from there. The cleanup is where I would start, exactly what you're talking about. First session, low-hanging fruit, easy, let's fix these. And then we can move on to some of the juicier, more policy-related aspects from there. But that'll give us a pretty good start. Opening with feedback from the public, moving on to the cleanup, and then on to further heavier matters.
Member Noonkip?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. My only thought is I do think having something to bring to the citizens for discussion would be helpful, just to facilitate the conversation. I don't know if everyone knows the chart at the back of their hand, and so coming with, here are the broad topics we want to discuss and solicit input in as a starting place would be helpful, but I'd like to see some scaffolding there for them.
Member Woodward.
Yes, the house cleaning type things I think we should move forward with. And we could go through those with the assistance of the attorney's office and make sure that that's on the ballot coming up in 2022. And then the deeper stuff, get into that with more time, more citizen feedback, and work it with that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would be on board with that now that we've discussed this overall and provided a little bit more clarity for members of council. I would be okay with that approach of bringing up the low-hanging fruit, as Member Noonan-Camp stated earlier, and then moving to a process where we first initiate it through members of the public and then coming back to city council. So I would be in favor of that. See a lot of head nods. Member Wink, anything from your end? Nothing to add. Any other comments from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. I guess we're on to the next agenda item. So we're now to the call to order. And starting up with agenda item 3 would be the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Yes, good evening. Member Anderson?
Present?
Member Noonan-Camp?
Present?
Member Russell?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Present.
Member Wink?
Present.
Member Woodward?
Present.
Mayor Sierra?
Present.
All 7 present.
Thank you, City Clerk. And now moving on to the minutes of the regular City Council meeting from February 7th, 2022. Any changes that any members of council would like to make? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from February 7th, 2022.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Can I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Anderson. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. And moving on to agenda item 6, appointments, communications, proclamations, and recognition. There's 2 of them on the docket tonight. First, we'll start off with recognition of the new board and commission members' appointments for that started earlier this month in February. So I'll pass it over to City Clerk. And actually, I'll stand up front and hand you something from the city in terms of your for recognition. Go ahead, City Clerk.
So we'll let the mayor get situated, but as we call out your name, we would just love for you to come up and receive a certificate and a small token of our appreciation for your service to the community. So we'll go ahead and, yeah, Jackie will help you with that, so. All right. So for the new appointees to the board and commissions, we have the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. So our first member is Aaron Rieger, a regular member. All right. For the Budget Advisory Committee, we have James Haran and Peter Eckel. All right, our next board is the Cultural Arts Commission, and we have Stacy Potish. All right, we've got Amy Fox. right, our next member is Leah Moran. Okay, we've got Kyle Conrad and Monica Alvadrez. I think the weather got to some people. I don't blame them. All right, for Election Commission, we have Doug Cohen. And our next Election Commission member is Belinda Porter. All right, for the Inglewood Housing Authority, we want to recognize David Hanzuski. Excuse me. For Historic Preservation Committee, we've got Mary Miles. The Malley Center Trust Fund is Joseph Demore. The Non-Emergency Pension Board, we have Belinda Porter. We also have Robert Stevenson for Non-Emergency Pension Board. All right, for Parks and Recreation Commission, we have Cody Phelps. Kate Truesdell. Stephen Young. All right, so for Planning and Zoning Commission, we have Brenda Hubka, Judy Brown, and Aaron Martinez. For the Public Library Board, we have Maggie Burns, we also have Dina Phelps. Okay, for the Sustainability Committee, we have Jessica Hall, Christine Brinker, Dana Liebert, Stephen Strawbridge, and Rachel Palia. Transportation Advisory Committee, we've got Neil Sarno, Greg Nattison, Tim Whitney, and Jennifer Heller. Great. For the Urban Renewal Authority, we've got Bernie Costello and Beth Hairston. For the Water and Sewer Board, we've got Caitlin Mercier, Marjan Freeman, and it looks like that's it for this evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everyone for serving your community.
Yes, thank you very much for coming out tonight as well. Moving on to the second recognition for tonight, a special one, a citizen recognition for the police department. So, yeah, Chief, if you wanted to come up. We wanted to commend the members of the public for the bravery they showed just a couple weeks back, or actually a couple months back, and recently helping another in need. So I'll go ahead and read something, and then we have something for those that are in attendance. So this is the chief's commendation presented to 3 individuals: William Ferris, Anthony Lucido, and Joe Allen. And I'll read from this. On November 24, 2021 at 10:24 a.m., a woman was sitting in her vehicle with the engine running in the parking lot at the U.S. Post Office at 3330 South Broadway. A male suspect armed with a box cutter approached her vehicle and demanded that she get out of the vehicle. The victim exited her vehicle and began to scream as the suspect entered the driver's seat. Recognizing the need to intervene for the safety of the victim, several citizens in the area heard the screams of the victim and rushed to her aid. Anthony Lucido, who worked at the post office, and Joe Allen, who came from a neighboring business, confronted the suspect and pulled him away from the victim. William Ferris also came from a neighboring business and tackled the suspect as he broke free from Lucido and Allen. Ferris injured his knee as he confronted the suspect. Lucido and Allen regained control of the suspect and held him down until responding officers arrived on the scene. The suspect was placed into custody without further incident. Ferris was treated by the medics for his injury. A dangerous suspect was taken into custody and a motor vehicle theft was thwarted due to the selfless actions of these citizens. We are grateful that we have such caring citizens who are willing to act quickly and come to the defense of another citizen who was in jeopardy. We have one member of the public here tonight from that event. We want to thank you, obviously, for the bravery they showed that night. Obviously, if any members of council want to speak up, but obviously, great work that night or that day. Thank you so much. Before we have you come up to, before we present something, I want Member Russell to just have something to say.
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Ferris. Thank you for coming this evening, and also the other 2 people that intervened, because we need far more people in our community to stand up for each other, because this is what makes Inglewood great, that we care for each other and intervene. Thank you so much.
Let me hand these over to the chief. And now moving on to agenda item 7, recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. This is an opportunity for the public to address city council. There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will be no dialogue. Please limit your presentations to 5 minutes, and written materials for presentation to council may be submitted to the city clerk. So the only item that I have for scheduled public comment tonight is was submitted by an Inglewood resident, A. McHugh. So members of the public and city council can also view that online.
Mayor, before we start on scheduled public comment, do we still have our Zoom call up?
Did not see that. Yes, city manager?
Don't have a microphone, but I did check with the folks in the back. We do still have them. They're able to hear. When they speak, we can hear them, but we are losing the video. So it's a little glitchy.
Thank you, city manager Lewis. All right, moving on to agenda item 8, recognition of unscheduled public comment. Same as scheduled public comment, but we are limiting presentation to 3 minutes. And city clerk, do we happen to have any unscheduled public comment? Okay.
Mayor, a point of information. I couldn't hear anything that was said by the clerk.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was not in my microphone, so that's my fault. So we don't have any, we're getting the sign-up sheet now, but I do know that Steve Kelly did pre-register for a 3-minute spot. I just can't see the screen, so I don't know if he's joining us by Zoom. Yeah, we're just gathering the sign-up sheet right now.
I do see him here.
Okay, great.
So just 1 second as the Assistant City Clerk brings us the list for tonight. Thank you so much. And so we'll start off with
Maybe we can start with the people that are
present.
here.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So first up would be Ms. Kathleen Bailey. Good evening, Ms. Bailey. If you can just state your name and your cross streets or your address.
Oh, good. Back being here, I'm glad. Can everybody hear me? Kathleen Bailey, District 4.
Could you, can you state your cross streets? I don't think just the district does not conform to the policy.
Oh, certainly, Union and Jason.
Thank you so much.
Like many baby boomers, I became and remain concerned with both civil rights and environmental protection. I am grateful for the work of Inglewood's Diversity and Inclusion Committee and appreciate the inspired by the quite eloquent, beautifully articulated February 14th counter responses made by council members Noonenkamp, Wink, Woodward, and Sierra. But I am here tonight because I must stand up and I must speak up against the stunning February 14th public comments and discriminating votes made from a position of authority by 3 sitting governing council members, Anderson, Ward, and Russell, each unabashedly intent on promoting discrimination and exclusion instead of inclusion and celebration of the Inglewood's LGBTQ community, and from my perspective, reflecting the destructive, self-righteous, religious bigotry, ignorance, and hate of the past. With my remaining time, I will read the powerful words of Mr. A. McHugh and his family in their 215 response. He wrote, "Dear City Council, my family and I have lived in Inglewood for 9 years. We are a veteran family who have served with honor and distinction. My family continues to serve our community in the medical and law enforcement fields. We have a foster family who has opened its home to children who need loving and stable environment to thrive in. Despite all that my family does and contributes as a productive citizen of Inglewood, it is concerning to me that during the council study session on February 14th, 22, some of you chose to make it clear that families like ours who identify as LGBTQ do not matter or are valued in Inglewood. Our queer family dollars help support Inglewood businesses, raise taxes, fix infrastructure, support the valued staff who work hard to encourage Inglewood to be its best. The rhetoric and propaganda during the meeting harken back to darker days in this country when similar conversations to justify discrimination of fellow Americans who were Native American, African American, Asian American, Jewish, or women. You spoke of patriotism, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. However, your actions to single out a group that has historically been prosecuted, discriminated against, fired upon jobs, murdered, assaulted, targeted of hate crimes, unable to marry, unable to secure financing, adopt children, pay taxes, access an inheritance, and target American domestic
Ms. Bailey.
terrorism.
Ms.
Doesn't
Bailey.
speak any
Ms.
of the
Bailey.
philosophy you claim to represent. Thank you for your 3 minutes of time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to second unscheduled public comment is Mr. Chris Dewis. Hello, Mr. Dewis, if you could state your name and your cross streets or your address.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris Dewis, Shenango and Lincoln for 38 years, a resident of Inglewood for 63 years. First off, I haven't spoken from the new council for a while. I want to say it's a breath of fresh air to have you guys here compared to the old council. So since my buddy was getting an award tonight, I Googled Inglewood crime, and one of the FBI statistics that came up tonight on the computer was, it says here, under the Inglewood, Colorado crime, with a crime rate of 62 per 1,000 residents, Inglewood has one of the highest crime rates in America compared to all communities of this size, from the smallest towns to the very largest cities. One chance of becoming a victim of either violent crime or property crime is 1 in 16. That's here in Inglewood, according to the FBI. Littleton is 1 in 32. I'm just curious, and I know I love the chief of police here. I love everything about Inglewood, but we do have a bad crime rate, and I'm just wondering why. Since I've lived here, I've seen things go from proactive to reactive, not just with code enforcement, but also with the police department. I don't see cruisers out at night like I used to, and I'm wondering why. I think if there was more police cars cruising the streets, there wouldn't be as many vehicle thefts, break-ins, and all that kind of stuff. I think it would be a deterrent. I like to see us be a little more proactive. And I really didn't have time to make any notes. I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you guys very much, and it's good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewis. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Dewis. And online, we have Mr. Steve Kelly. Mr. Kelly, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Kelly. If you could just state your name and your cross streets or your address.
Yep. Stephen Kelly, Radcliffe in Delaware. City Council member Russell, in your response last week, you missed my 2 points. So to clarify, in regard to masks, I know you weren't wearing a mask, but your actions and words regarding violations were not hypocritical in my opinion. So I did not make note of you're not wearing a mask. And 2, City Council has spoken, you said. They spoke about off-leash regulations. The change in regulations and the closing of the north side of Jason Park in December are 2 separate actions. At least that's the public face. If true, it shows council's inability to see the big picture and the effect that these 2 actions, when combined, has had on a community of citizens. That's concerning, very concerning. Such a major disruption with parks and council's inability to see the immediate impact on a community demonstrates to me a dereliction of duty by council, city manager, and parks leadership, including the Parks Commission. You also communicated that further discussion should be had individually. Well, I disagree. Since an email was sent to the city manager, the city attorney, every city council member about my concerns, and 0 response was sent. Continuing, kind of moving on, but on page 7 of the latest issue of the Inglewood Citizen, the strategic plan is bulleted. It says, quote, establishing a new outcome area called community well-being to focus on our city's great work in such areas, which include parks and recreation. Well, your and Parks Department's double blow at Jason Park is an act of community genocide, not community well-being. Further, Parks Department and Parks Commission's feeble attempt to link the restrictions to off-leash privileges with community building earns a grade of F in this educator's opinion. And I do see tonight on the agenda, there's a public hearing about a planned unit development on Huron. Well, it's very close to the one on Jason and other developments down there. And it is my hope that City Council will be able to see the big picture of all these developments and not look at each one as if the previous ones have not happened. I have no opinion on this unit development, but I am concerned from previous actions that council members have blinders on or they're myopic in terms of what they're looking at. Please look at the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any comments from council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly, for your words tonight.
Thank you.
Anyone else online? City Clerk? Nope. That concludes unscheduled public comment tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Ward will be responding to public comment. Mayor Pro Tem, when you're ready.
I feel it's somewhat fortuitous that I'm the one responding to public comment tonight. My words last week were ineloquent at best. And to the extent that they did harm to members of our community, I hope that those members of the community will accept my sincerest apology. I personally am glad to have people of all different backgrounds, types, lifestyles in Inglewood. And I want to make it clear that everyone is welcome here. And I will make efforts in the future to ensure that my actions prove that belief. So I apologize. I need to, in the future, work to more carefully think about what I say before I say it. And sometimes I fail as a politician. I want to be a good person more than I want to be a good politician. Don't always meet either standard. So I'm sorry. Secondly, Mr. Duis Chris, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Crime is a concern of mine. I've talked about this recently with the manager. We've talked about this recently in council sessions, and I think that it's fair to anticipate future council discussions on the subject of crime in Inglewood. I am looking forward to those discussions because I need to know as a lawmaker and as someone who's responsible for the policy that the city sets relative to police staffing, crime, and other issues that can impact crime, what we can do to solve the problem and make our residents feel safer in this community. And that goes for me too, as a resident of this community. I want to feel safe when I travel through Inglewood. I want to feel safe when I bring my parents to Inglewood, and I want everyone around me to feel safe. So how we capture that is going to be an ongoing discussion in the future, and I anticipate very soon, in the very near future, we'll be talking about that. Mr. Kelly, your comments are noted. Jason Park will reopen under the new policy at some point. We're resting the turf. That's been asked previously and answered previously. There's not a conspiracy to shut down dogs at Jason Park. An unfortunate consequence of changing the policy and subsequently resting the turf in the area where we changed the policy is that right now there isn't dog access in Jason Park. There's not any plan on the agenda to make that permanent. We need to rest the turf to ensure that grass is available for all of the users at Jason Park, and that is the purpose of resting the turf at Jason Park currently. That's all I have. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Ward. Members of council, I think let's go through the consent agenda items, if you guys are okay with that, before taking a short break before the public hearing. Is everyone okay with that? Member Russell.
I would like to pull 9C2 on the consent agenda.
I do have that as well. Member Russell, thank you. Everyone okay with moving through the agenda items? So Member Russell did pull 9C2. If I can get a motion to approve 9A1, 9B1, 9B2, and 9C1.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ward. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any comments from council? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Perfect. And 9C2, staff recommends City Council approve by motion a contract with McBride Lighting and Electrical Service for replacement of the light fixtures on the ground floor level of Civic Center parking garage. Do we have, hello, Director DeAndre. Director DeAndre is here to present, or at least to speak to. Member Russell, do you have your question?
Yes. I mean, we really weren't given any information on this. Normally, we get price comparisons. There were five companies. So is there a reason we did not get price comparisons? Meaning what the bid was by each different company?
The price comparison should have been included in the score summary in the packet, where we individually scored all of the vendors.
Okay, thank you. I did not see that.
Member Russell, do you have another question or?
No, I guess now that I see it, why was it buried under McBride, the one that was chosen? I mean, and maybe it was just the way the packet got put together, I'm not certain.
I don't believe there was any rhyme or reason between the way it was presented in the packet.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, Councilmember Russell. So typically, this was a request for proposals as opposed to a true bid where we just take the lowest bid. So we're looking at it from several factors. So price is one major factor, but also the timing of when they can start construction, things like availability of personnel. So this is typically, that's why we did the scoring, because it was a multiple variety of factors. In the future, we can include that in a more direct way in the memo, but there were several factors that caused this particular company to be chosen.
So why did we do like a request for proposal rather than a bid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think timing was a major factor, and I'll let John talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so stemming back to the fall of 2021, we had a lighting assessment performed with existing conditions of the lighting in there in the parking garage. So we took that assessment and wrote the RFP in a way that it was a level playing ground. It wasn't a one-for-one replacement. It was a set assessment, same lighting fixtures, same layout across the board. So there wasn't any bettering in pricing and things of that nature to keep a straight playing field. So everybody bid on the same assessment, the same fixtures, the same quantity, so on and so forth.
And who did the lighting assessment?
Clanton and Associates. They assist us on a couple other assessments throughout the city.
Okay, and did they have, I mean, did they kind of leave things open-ended on some things, or did they know what type of fixtures we needed, or?
Yeah, they based their whole assessment on what's currently the measure of, I believe it's foot candles, as far as what one light fixture admits, and per each, and evaluated what was existing, which was very below industry standard, and did a lighting analysis with a specified lighting fixture, which granted us having the required foot candles.
Okay, so the major reason we did an RFP was time.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
Question on the lighting. Is that energy efficient, that is LED or something, all of the lighting, stairwells and
the main focus was the actual parking lot lights. The stairwells were LEDs, so that wasn't a huge impact as far as we did have an alternate, but we decided not to go with the alternate just because of the lighting in those stairways is ample per the assessment. So we just went with the updated LEDs for the parking garage.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can we please Can I get a motion to approve 9C2?
I move to approve agenda item 9C2.
Thank you, Member
Wing.
Wing. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Wink,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Perfect. If members of council are okay with taking a short break, I actually just have questions about the video and whether or not we can get everyone online and visible here. So if we could take a 10-minute break and meet again here about 7:15. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're good.
This is the big shot. Hey, you see what the small showing. They're gonna keep you in line. It's always hard about change. The old days, we used to use boards and pools and areas just like so if you look at change, I only brought 14. That's good. Oh my. Oh my. I want to be able to see your faces. This is, they recommended that we come over here so that the commission will see them better. But I've also headed back to the planning board. Did you really?
Yeah, I just want to make sure they didn't. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's. Yeah, and I'll let you know.
So, this is the control arc. Control set. Why not do this?
I have them also on the presentation.
There me. I guess I could ask that question at that point. Member Woodward. Member Woodward to the dais. Member Woodward. Member Woodward, you're needed at the dais.
Nobody?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody
Oh, okay.
for either, so.
And we are back. We're now to agenda item 10, public hearing items, and I'm assuming that member Wink is online since I can't see her. City
Yes,
Clerk?
I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you, Member Wink. I guess I should just ask. So we're now up to the public hearing. The public will be able to participate virtually or in person for the following hearing. So we're agenda item 10A is the plan unit development at 3601 South Huron Street. Up first, let's, can we open the public hearing by motion? Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Can I get a second? Thank you, Member Noonencamp. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonencamp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, City Clerk. And then up to present first would be Director of Community Development Brad Power and Planner Will Charles. And actually, I think the way we did it last time is just we swore in anyone that would be presenting during this first round, whether it was members of staff as well as members from the development team. If actually, I'll pass it over to you, City Clerk, as well as people online.
Yep, so if you are going to be providing any testimony online, if you could turn your cameras on because we will swear you in as well. And then anybody who is here physically, if you could just stand up and raise your right hand, please. Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter now being heard by the Inglewood City Council?
I do.
Thank you. When you do come up to speak, we'll just ask that you state your name and address or position for the record, please.
All right.
Go ahead, Mr. Charles.
Gonna get adjusted to my height real quick. So Will Charles, Planner 2 with the Community Development Department. I'm gonna test this real quick. Okay, perfect. So the matter before us tonight is 3601 and 888 West Ithaca. The property is zoned I-1 light industrial with about 0.75 acres, with the current use being an office building on the western side of the property. So the project overview, the project is 24 units divided over 4 structures, so 6 units in each. The proposed PUD would only have residential as its use. Additionally, the height limitation is 50 feet, although most of the structure is about 44 feet in height. The property boasts increased landscaping beyond what would be required of the underlying zone district, which would be that I-1 light industrial. And then they're also proposing 48 off-street parking spaces for those 24 units. So the applicant will probably have some prettier pictures in their presentation. But this is just a rough site plan of the property. So you can see the property is bordered by 3 streets, one on the north, one on the west, and then one on the east, with 4 structures with 6 units in each. This is a elevation of the property from Inca Street. As far as code modifications, so these are things that would be different from if this was, purely a use by right under the UDC. So the first being landscaping. The property has a 10% minimum landscape requirement under the development plan. On their site plan, they actually have well over this amount of landscaping. They have about 13% of the ground cover being covered in landscaping. And then with the addition of what's called a street tree credit, they would actually go up to about 21% as far as what the UDC would consider the landscaping for the site. As far as building height, I already mentioned, they have a maximum height of 50 feet. However, most of the property is closer to 44. Additionally, parking, the UDC calls out about 1.7 spaces per unit for a development of this type. These are each having a 2-car garage, so 48 spaces for those 24 units. As far as setbacks go, the I-1 light industrial does not require a setback requirement. The property would have a 3-foot setback on each side of the property. And then additionally, the uses would be that residential instead of I-1 light industrial. Additionally, it has come up in, the previous PUDs, and I'll go ahead and skip back a couple pages real quick. The Public Works Department, Community Development, as well as the applicant had a chance to meet last week to discuss the multimodal exhibit that has been asked about a couple times. So as far as the public improvements, meaning like the non-bike lane improvements, we'll call them those. So the sidewalk improvements, the crosswalks, the ADA ramps, all of that, that'll all be required as said in previous meetings. As far as the bike lanes, the city has a walk and wheel master plan that goes to this area that has basically the eastern side of it would be Alati and Fox Street. I apologize. And I apologize for not having a map. Obviously, this presentation was created before we had a chance to have that meeting. But the gist of it is that the majority of the bike lanes that the developer would be required to put in would be along Kenyon Street, Ithaca Street, Jason Street, and Fox Street, as well as a portion of Alati Street that goes north above the police station. And if that wasn't clear, let me know, because I know I said with a lot of words. So moving back forward on the plan, the project enhancements for the property, they're going to have traffic calming through those multimodal adjustments, improving walkability through detached versus attached sidewalks, provide increased home ownership opportunities for the city of Inglewood, as well as additional parking and landscaping beyond what is required under a use by right in the UDC. Staff and Planning and Zoning Commission found that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, is in conformance with the generally accepted development standards and other ordinances. The application is substantially consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the city, and the application furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the downtown development plan. Sorry, forgot my water glass back there. So as far as Planning and Zoning Commission recommendations, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this way and read from the slide because this screen is not working. So payment of $16,320 for park and open space fee in lieu, reconstruction of those curved ramps and crosswalks, installation and maintenance of a historic plaque at the corner of Ithaca and Huron, documenting the significance, the historic role that the site played in carnation industry within the city per the approved landscape plan. Proposed multimodal improvements will be the Public Works Department, as the ones I mentioned previously. A minor subdivision will be required and filed at Arapahoe County prior to building permits. Financial contribution to the future Hamden Rail Trail, and then increased landscaping requirements from 21% to 25% to meet residential landscape requirements. The 4% increase to be paid in a landscape fee in lieu to the city. I have that dollar value real quick. It's $4,420. So as mentioned, there's that credit for street trees, as well as the additional above that 10% that they have. So the additional 4% above that to kind of meet in line with a residential zone district is that 25%. So that's where they got to that number. But that is it for my presentation. So let me know if you have questions. Oh, and additionally, members of our Public Works and Traffic Department are here as well, if you have any questions for them as well.
Thank you. Any questions from members of council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one question. Can you go back to the previous slide? I should probably have a better understanding of this, but can you explain park and open space fee in lieu in a nutshell to me? What is the purpose of that?
Absolutely. So for any new development that increases density in the city, we require that they pay a fee. It's called a park open space fee in lieu. But the gist of it is that for multifamily residential, if you increase your unit count, so if there was one residence on the property and now there's two, you'd pay $385 per unit.
So the principle behind this is generally more people in our city means more parks usage, which means the one-time fee to
pay
contribute
for
maintenance on that.
Correct.
So even though we're going from concrete to concrete, we're adding density and that's
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Actually, I do have a question just regarding the bike paths, just.
Yeah.
Let me see what I wrote down. So bike paths will be added on Ithaca, Fox, Inca, Jason, Canyon Street.
Correct.
So.
And then it kind of does a wiggle to a lottie around the police station.
Okay. But I guess my clarification, is that what the city is already planning as part of the walk and wheel plan, or is that part of the discussion tonight as part of the public hearing?
So the walk and wheel plan has, the 2015 one as well as the new one has has the Kenyon as well as the the walk and wheel plan, the 2015, as well as the kind of in development reamp of it, has bike lanes on Kenyon Street as well as Fox and Elati. So those portions are on there, and then the Ithaca and Jason portions are kind of added in as far as part of this development. But those would be things that the developer is required to pay for the installation of.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Wink has her hand up.
Perfect. Member Wink.
Thank you, City Clerk. Thanks, Mayor. I too, Mr. Charles had a question about the bike plan, and this may be due to oversight in Cheryl's brain, but the memo pointed out that bike accessibility would be on, I think, Huron, Inca, maybe those streets, and you also mentioned that there would be some wiggle. The expectation is there's a little bit of wiggle to Elati. I love the idea that there's allowance for more biking in the city and safe biking. I just want to understand that the surrounding, like the ingress and egress to that area of bikes accessibility is there in the city. Because I wonder, okay, it makes sense and there's allowance to bike around here, and then where do they go? Are they compromised traffic-wise? And in that same vein, I'm wondering if, probably similar to Mayor Sierra's question, if we are weaving in a plan to sort of to support what this PUD is enabling in the way of bike access. So are we doing anything to support what they're going to allow for, perhaps beyond the bounds of this project? It just feels a little encapsulated when I read this.
Yeah, so that was kind of the intent of tying it to proposed lanes in the walk and wheel master plan, was to kind of allow for that, eventual connectivity. So right now, the one bike lane that I can think off the top of my head that would be connected to this would be the portion on Windermere that already has sharrows that go down that. As far as the northbound, I'm not sure. If either of our public works representatives know a little more on that, I'll kind of defer the back half of that question to them.
That's fair enough, Mr. Charles. And I know that a lot's in development, but yeah, if there's more to be said, that'd be great. Thank you.
I see Director DeAndre's making her way to the podium. Director DeAndre, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so I think, as the mayor and Member Wink pointed out, the plan is for them just to do kind of the immediate area. So we would have to build on for that. So it'd end essentially at Kenyon, let's say from, I believe, Windermere to whatever the end street is. So then you're kind of just lost in space. So we would want to build on that, and that would help to prioritize our next projects, is to then bring that out to a reasonable phase. So bring it all the way on Kenyon, let's say, to Broadway, so that it makes sense. It gets you to another facility or gets you at least to a major street.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Director DeAndre. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you,
questions from council? If not, we can go ahead and open the presentation up to members of MRA. Mr. Kudla. Good evening, Mr. Kudla. You have been sworn in. You have the podium as well as an open mic over here in case you want to walk back and forth like you did last time around. So giving you the option tonight, Mr. Kudla.
In addition to taking my oath, I promise this evening not to have 20 boards. Number two, I promise not to run around and lay on the floor. Number three, it's a privilege to be here tonight to share with a lot of people in Cohen Doug Cohen prompted some inspiration with me when I looked at his book, and I just met him briefly in the lobby. So I prefaced my presentation by saying, there's a lot of history here in that presentation of his book. Number two, I looked at the latter chapters of it about the carnation dimension and acknowledgement. And I would like to say that in the future, it's a big statement. I'd like to be able to look back and say that I had a positive impact on our next transition of living in Englewood. So that was pretty memorable. So with all of that, let's go ahead and take a peek. Tonight, as you folks know, I'm here with members of my staff, Alma, Danny, Joe, Ryan. I got a couple helplines out there somewhere that we'll call in if we need them. You folks know that we have been very, very committed and very active. This is another second part of our diversification delivery of different types of housing for different demographics across the board, entry level, middle level, all types of sizes. So our focus tonight will be on size, price, demographic, and also recognition of the technical accomplishments that we've had. Alma, I've mentioned here the members that are with us either online or in the room. The project's pretty redundant from the last time. We haven't changed our name, we haven't changed our address, and we still have the same proud buildings. You know that we are committed. In this particular opportunity for Huron, we've chatted at length with supply and demand experts in Englewood. We want to continue to have attainable for-sale housing of all ages and demographics. In this particular case, it is in the upper range of pricing, $600 to $650. There's only 24 of them for that segment of the marketplace. And when we made a presentation just recently to the Planning Commission, we were amazed by the updated stats with what product was available and not available. And we had 16 residents in Englewood for sale. So we hope to add to the opportunities for choice. There's some obvious items. We want to help with the municipal tax bases. We're all about activation, energy, positive energy, connectivity, walkability, trying to build enough rooftops to generate more people on the street. Back to the safety discussion that we had earlier this evening, more people on the street, usually more eyes. We will continue our focus on open space, public art. We are going to have a dedication on behalf of the Holbergs in the Carnation District. We will continue looking at our 3 choices for attainability. And Bing, I sure hope that we have a brand that we will be proud of to bring forward with Englewood on the industrial area. Everyone knows about the catalytic area, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. We did the walkability and connectivity stat sheet that has been of record through our first presentation and to the public. We are very encouraged by our ability to connect to the city center, light rail, but also to the other districts as in downtown, the downtown Broadway area, along with the Swedish health area. The site is pretty self-explanatory. Everyone says, where is it? I say south of the south. Everyone knows the legend of the restaurant. We've had a great relationship with the Holbergs and with the people from the restaurant and the adjacencies. So it's a little infill site right at Inca, Huron, and Ithaca. This particular product type is really a step-up product. The first opportunity that we presented to You folks represented some entry-level opportunities. This is probably a step-up product that is available for individuals in that 35 to 45 because it does have stairs, no elevators. It's a 3-story building. It has, as Will mentioned, there's 4 of them. Every home has a private 2-car accessible garage directly from its residence. And each of the homes are 2-bedroom, 3.5 bath, plus a flex space for work or den. And one of the technical obligations that we fulfilled with the city through its engineering department and overall requirements, we do have on-site stormwater quality and detention to the city codes. Pictures, we can jump through these relatively quick. Here's a view from the east, looking east, mid-block looking west, another one looking south. The south, the restaurant looking north. And there's an aerial of the site from a visual standpoint. It's interesting, there's been a lot of hard surface discussed over a period of time. We hope to bring different dimensions to the neighborhood through all 3 communities. Another rendition. Traffic counts, we want to emphasize the fact that the traffic engineers representing us in conjunction with the city looked at all of the surrounding areas, and in this particular case, the round trips from the existing site, according to the industrial standards, is about 65 per day. And the proposed residential development would have about 70, so it's about the same. Everyone looks at parking ratios. That has been a topic of discussion for all of the presentations that the council has been seeing over the last 6 months. In this particular case, this particular opportunity presents 2 private spaces per home. The multimodal improvements. Again, you look at a screen, it's very, very difficult. And last time I tried to get on my back and show it with my pointer, but as Will has emphasized, our 3 sites have been fully evaluated from traffic, from engineering, from the bicycle program implementation. And the tweaking of north and south is probably the biggest item that we work closely with the city to basically say, if you don't want us to go all the way down to Oxford, we understand certain areas, but we are in agreement with the city related to their revisions and recommendations to us. The curbs and the multimodal bulbs and all of those have been formally identified in the formal package the city has. Boy, more of those interesting diagrams. Keep going. Keep going. We do have a very urbanish streetscape. This particular slide represents not only the 24 residences on the site between the 3 streets, but someone asked me publicly, what's the off-street parking like? And in this particular opportunity, I think the Holbergs were very interested in saying, okay, Peter, where's your parking and what do we have on the streets? There is approximately, give or take, 30 to 35 off-street parking at this point in time, in addition to the 48 on-site. Again, the tree lawn, sidewalk detached, the complements of urban landscaping and our commitment to landscaping and treescaping is just an indicator that we try to depict with this. Same on the west, same on the north. Bingo. I think we're going to wrap this up by simply saying we are all facing changes in our lives, where we live, how we live, what we live in, how much we can pay for what we live. And I'm trying to hit and deliver residential environments that are entry to middle to age diversification, and that's really why we said meet us in the middle. Benefits, we're trying to increase housing choices. Property taxes will be increased. We'll continue to contribute in any form or fashion to the attainable housing efforts in Englewood. The fees in excess of $450,000 will be paid for permits and fees. The branding of the industrial district, and also new residents. Next. Boom, the faces. The first one was site number 1, the Elks. Site number 2, Huron. And the diversification is the next step to delivering something that we are very proud of. We did a comparison chart here that's been included. The first property had an average size of 770 versus this one is 1,700. Price banding is different, property tax analysis, things of that nature. So you're going to see this, you saw the small, you're seeing the larger space, and yes, I will be in front of you one more time, probably in another 3-4 weeks, on our middle. So with all of that, I'd like to say that I'm very proud of what happened in the last year with the staff in the neighborhoods. There was one item that I would like to address the council on, and that is the objectiveness of the allocation of the path and the overbridge and things of that nature. In all due respect, I think Planning Commission had positive goals and objectives related to how certain new developments would contribute. And I can tell you, I didn't have, and I think staff didn't have the objective formula for the contribution. And since that, because in your recommendations from Planning Commission, they had recommended a $40,000 impact fee, if you per se call that. And we were sitting there saying, well, where did that come from? And in all due respect, I think with the efforts to look at the contribution, the recommendation was an interesting one, but maybe not mathematically equal to what other calculations would be objectively. And what I mean by that is asking Will and the staff of how that allocation is calculated. So with you folks, you know, Fifield has made a contribution based on approximately $1,000 a unit. Elks is based on $1,000 a unit. And if indeed this was to carry the same thought process objectively, it would be 24,000, not 40. So just ending that objective part and just tell you that I'm open for questions and my team is also.
Thank you, Mr. Kudla, for the presentation. Any questions from council? Member Noonenkamp.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. It's nice to see you again. Can you go back to the slide around off-street parking? I just have a question there. So I see the red, which
Yes.
I think is the on-street parking, correct?
That is what is existing right now today.
Right.
Yes.
And then each unit will have a 2-car garage. Are you saying in addition to the 48 garage spots, there's going to be an additional amount of?
No.
Okay, so there's no additional off-street parking besides the garage spaces?
Councilperson, all we were trying to do was represent what is on the site and give the neighborhood a good feeling of understanding of what is actually currently off the site.
Gotcha. That's clarification. Thank you.
Member Woodward.
Yes, I have a question on the stormwater vault. And I'm just interested in, do you have an idea of I see it on the plan and stuff, but how large, what is the volume or the capacity?
Huge, no.
I saw it was huge. At least it was long.
trying to
I
keep
was
some,
wondering if it was only 1 foot deep, though.
It's lined with gold. I have to rely on our technicians for that explanation. So I would ask for a helpline from either the city engineers and/or ours to provide us that answer.
Thank you.
You know, I'll speak up. My name is John Stafford. I'm with Harris Coker Smith, 1120 Lincoln Street, Denver, Colorado. You know, I'm pulling up the actual drainage report now, but if I had to guess, it was around 5,000 cubic feet. We're detaining for the full 100-year detention and water quality capture volumes.
5,000 cubic feet?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now, but based on the size of the site, I expect I'm pretty close.
Okay, and that was, from what I heard earlier in the presentation, approved by the city or in conjunction with city staff.
Correct. I'm Tyler Trojan. I'm an engineer with Public Works. I can't speak to the exact size of the volume there. He said approximately 5,000. What I can say is that during the review process, everything is reviewed, the drainage report, and they do meet our requirements that they are detaining the amount of water required for a 100-year storm event.
Great. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any other questions from council? Mr. Kudla, I guess I just got a question in terms of my curiosity. You do mention in the presentation, or at least within the documentation, that there are going to be charging stations for electric vehicles. Do I understand that correct? Is it by unit or is it just outside?
No, it will be an opportunity that all of the residences will be wired appropriately. So if an individual, if you had an electric car, you have the freedom to do that. And if somebody next door doesn't have one, they have a choice not to have one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kudla. Any other questions from council? Don't see any. Is Member Wing, do you happen to have a question? I'm not able to see you yet, so.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a question at this time. Thank you, though.
Perfect. If no other questions from council, we would move it over to the public, but I'm seeing that we actually don't have any members of the public that are looking to speak tonight. Just going to ask if there's anybody in the room that does want to speak. I guess now would be the time, but.
We don't have anybody joining us virtually either.
Thank you, City Clerk. If there's no other questions, I guess, do have a motion to close this public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
I'll second that motion, Member Wink.
Thank you, Member Wing. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Mr. Kudla, thank you very much to you and your team for coming again tonight. Sounds like we're going to be seeing you here in a couple of weeks and again in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So make yourself comfortable. So thank you very much, Mr. Kudla.
Thanks, everybody. It's also great to see everybody in a healthy mode. I see the dividers separated and down, and all we're trying to do is help everybody get healthy, go forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kudla, and thank you very much to staff as well for the presentation tonight. Thank you. And now moving on to agenda item 11. 11B1, authorizing a loan agreement between the City of Inglewood and the Inglewood Downtown Development Authority Tonight, we have Redevelopment Manager Dan Parumba and Executive Director of Inglewood Downtown Development Authority, Hillary Portel. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. I'm just here to answer any questions. I gave a presentation a couple of weeks ago. Happy to follow up with any thoughts you have.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from council? Seeing, no. Member Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I was looking through my paperwork to see where the questions were. So if the EDDA wants additional funds, you will not have to come back if we approve this. It will be left up to staff, correct?
The way the loan agreement is drafted, the city manager may approve additional funds if they have been approved and budgeted by city council.
Okay. The other question that I have under the repayment of the loan, does this mean it is an interest-only loan with a balloon payment no later than 12/31/28?
It allows us to pay interest only, but it also allows us to pay any amount we want and can do in any given year. There's no penalty for prepayment.
Okay. That answers my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other questions from council? If not, can I get a motion to approve 11B1?
I move to approve 11B1.
Thank you, Member Ward. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any comments from council? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Yes, Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp? Aye. Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Going on to 11B2, Council Bill 06. This is the approval of the 3690 South Jason Street Plan Unit Development. Here to present is Planner Will Charles and Director of Community Development Brad Power. Mr. Charles, this is the second reading. Is there anything for you to present?
There is not. I was just, if you have any questions for me, but otherwise, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Any questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the plan unit development?
I'll move the approval.
Thank you, Member.
Council Bill numbers 06.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second?
I'll second the motion. All right, Member Anderson.
Member Anderson. Thank you, Member Wing. I have Member Anderson as the second on that one. Any comments from council? Member Russell.
I would just like to make some comments again. These are the similar comments that I made last time. I do appreciate the plans that you have. I think they're great plans, but I have huge concerns about the density that the city is adding, and we must protect our industrial areas. They are greater income generators than one-time fees generated by development. Planned unit developments piecemeal our city, and city council should not change the zoning. The public is overwhelmingly against increased density. There is insufficient parking, the traffic impact will be greater than projected, and Public Works will have the final say on the multimodal improvements, and therefore I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
I just have some comments regarding my colleagues' remarks. I disagree. I think the tax revenue, rooftops create tax revenue, especially for Colorado with sales tax being the major income for cities. And this particular project, I don't see as real dense. I mean, it's a fairly small project. So, and it's innovative. It's different than anything I've seen in town before. So I'm really pleased with it, and I will be voting yes.
May I respond?
Thank you, Member Woodward. Actually, let me move over to Member Noonekamp and then Member Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to voice my support. I'll be voting yes on this tonight. And I'm voting yes because I'm thrilled to see an actually attainable housing development in our city. To see units in the 200s, we haven't seen that in a long time. And perhaps as the member of this council who was most recently in the housing market, I can attest to how brutal it is out there. And to see opportunities provided in our city for home ownership, for the creation of wealth and generational wealth at an attainable rate, I think is something that we should be proud of, and I'm proud to vote for this tonight, especially considering that the previous land owner was not generating revenue for the city, and I see this as a huge improvement.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Member Russell.
Thank you. I would just like to remind Councilmember Woodward that it was the industrial area and income from the industrial area that took this city through the pandemic, and we weathered it very well when other cities were not, mainly because of the industrial area. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell.
Councilmember Wink has her hand up.
Yes, Member Wink.
Thank you, City Clerk Carlisle. Yeah, I'm doubtful about some of the citations of stats there as well. I will be supporting this PUD this evening. I think it's the right proposal at the right time for our city's needs. It's offering, as Member Noonekamp shared, the right diversity of the property offerings, not just in terms of price, but for many price points. And I think that the entire team has looked very thoughtfully at Englewood yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and proposed something that fits the culture of our community. So the economics are there, sort of the cultural piece is there, the alignment sort of across our strategic plan for developing our city and meeting the undeniable population growth needs. I just think it's very well done. And it fits very well into the strategy we had in mind and is well thought through. So I will absolutely be supporting this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Member Wink. Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
The item of note on this for me is that we held a public hearing on the development. And the only person who came to speak from the public regarding the development spoke in favor of it. So if we're to obey the will of the people of the city of Englewood regarding development, this is a development that gets the stamp of approval. I echo some of Councilmember Noonecamp's comments about attainability of housing. This price range is impressive to me. It allows people who otherwise would not be able to buy a house in Englewood, find a place to live here in the city, and become a part of the community. So I will be supporting this tonight as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ward. I too will be in support of this measure tonight. I stated my case a couple weeks back, and I just echo the comments from our fellow council members tonight and their voice for approving this. So thank you very much. With no further comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonekamp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Thank you again, MRA team. Not sure if you guys are going to stick around, but have a great evening and drive safe out there. Moving on to 11C1, award a contract for services to Next Generation Services. Facilities Project Manager Don Donikowski is here to present on approving a contract with Next Generation Services for library carpet replacement in the Englewood Library for $132,500. Good evening again, Mr. Donikowski.
Good evening, Council. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm here this evening to do a quick presentation for the library carpet replacement project. Purpose of the project is replacing the 20-year-old carpet in the library common grounds. The new carpet will refresh the library's aesthetic appeal. Carpet replacement will also remove a lot of the stains and allergens and dust built up over the years of usage, and be able to eliminate a lot of that. A little bit of the project background. So we indicated for capital projects and public works that this was one of the key infrastructure improvement plans that I implemented in our 5-year plan for the Civic Center. Recent library maintenance that we did within the last year was quite a bit of drywall repairs and painting of the entire library. So the map that you see there gives an indication of the common areas in green, which the proposal had indicated as far as carpet replacement. So mind you, this does not include any back of house or staff offices or conference room or anything, just in the public areas. And we did go for a formal request of a proposal back in November. We did receive one proposal from Next Generation Services. The services that they recommended were, we went with the phased library open with phased removal and replacement of the carpet while the library was open. It also included removing and replacing existing VCT. There was a couple small areas in the common area, mostly at the entrances and exits, and also included demolition and trash removal of the existing material. Moving of furniture and bookshelving was also included, so they can get 100% coverage underneath the current bookshelves. It also included replacing the rubber cove base, mostly around the columns, the existing columns. And it also included replacing the carpet on the platforms in the children's areas. Next Generation came recommended because we have used them for different flooring projects in the past, and they did a really good job for the city. The project funding was going to come from the Fund 31 for facilities and operations. And in summary, the staff is recommending that City Council approve by motion a contract with Next Gen Surfaces for the replacement of the Inglewood carpet in the common areas for the amount of $132,500.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donikowski. Any questions from council? Member Noonekamp.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions tonight. One is, there's only one proposal here. We only received one back. Can you explain how you view that? And when you only get one back, do you kind of hesitate? Do you have an idea of why we only got one back, and how that affects your decision-making moving forward? And how are we evaluating if this is a fair price, if there's nothing to compare it to?
Yeah, we did have in our RFP process, we did have a required pre-construction meeting. So we all came on site. We met with vendors, I believe 2 vendors attended to that. And we walked the scope of the library and everything. And we were surprised that we've gotten one proposal as well. Kind of doing a analysis. I had tentatively, just on basic square foot prices, were right around $100,000 at the time before we went for RFP. So it was a little surprising that it went as high as it did.
And then do you also have a sense of what the typical lifetime of carpet like this will be if we were to replace it, how long it would last us?
Well, considering the existing carpet, I believe it, with speaking with library staff, I do believe it was original carpet. So the material that you see in there currently is about 20 years old. So with the new carpets, I think that's about the lifespan as well, anywhere from 20 to 25 years.
Okay, can I do one more, Mayor? And the last thing, I think this is, for me, the elephant in the room. when you're looking at capital investments into this building, how are you evaluating them in light of separate conversations about the future of this building, the future of the library, and potentially that changing, and investing in this one? And I'll be honest, I'm struggling with that. How are you evaluating that?
Well, I went first and foremost, started talking with city staff as far as, what would be a nice to have and what would be a have to have types of thing, throughout, their tenure with working in the library, and a lot, had been mentioned with, the paint, doing some accent walls, just kind of, fluffing up the place because it was, considered the front foyer for the city, for instance. That's kind of the vibe that I got from city staff, and just kind of like, we've, had this carpet and there's some patches and things like that, it kind of came to, what it was a major thing that we could do better, with replacement. And the carpeting was one of them. There's a lot of patches in areas where they had moved around shelves from the past, and it's just very, just aesthetics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Member Woodward.
Yes, I have a few questions. Do you have a number of square feet of what you'll be carpeting, what you'll be actually working on with?
It is approximately 70,000 square foot, I believe, what is indicated in blue.
70,000, and then the VCT?
The VCT is indicated with the yellow squares on our map there. So as you can see, both entry and exits. And then also, I believe that's the children's reading room on the west side there. So just two small areas of VCT.
Yeah, I don't see any yellow. I see blue and I see green. But I don't see color real well, so.
So if you see so there's a these little guys here.
Okay, thank you. So the whole thing, including the VCT, is 70,000 square feet.
Correct. The common area space.
Okay. So there, material board, do you have a material board? Do we know what we're looking at as far as the product?
Yeah, it was a specified material, and working with library manager, we gave them some color palettes, and he chose, it's very similar to what we have here up on third floor. It's a scatograph carpet. I don't have a sample with me handling, but it's very similar to third floor.
Okay, and the carpet warranty?
Yeah, whatever the standard warranty, I think it's a 10-year material.
Okay. And the base, I heard you say rubber. That was one of my questions. Was it rubber or vinyl? I'm glad to hear it was rubber.
Well, the current base right now, about 80% of the walls is all wood base. The cove base that would be replaced would be the structural column, similar to what we have in this room. So those are the only areas with the vinyl cove base.
Yeah, okay. And I don't think I've ever seen 4.5 inch. I've seen 4 inch, but 4.5 inches is different. The other item that I have is the carpet down there has been replaced. I was on council when we replaced it. We went to the squares at that time because throughout up here on the other floors, the main areas, so we weren't having to replace big pieces of carpet and store big pieces of carpet. So this is the third time we've had carpet down there. Just for your information.
Some of the more tenured library staff, I had found out who had been there the longest, because I've only been with the city for a short time. They had indicated they thought it might have been original carpet.
And I think I can answer the question too of bids on commercial carpet. If you do spec a carpet, whoever gets the invitation to bid will probably win that bid, because they will call the mill and give a name to it. It'll be reserved at that lower price, at the lowest price. Any other companies that'll come in for that price or for that particular carpet for that job will get a higher price. So the first caller in gets first choice, gets the price. So I would advise you in the future to say we'll give you the spec on the carpet after the bid. Don't bid the carpet yet. Just bid the installation, we're doing squares, this sort of thing. And after the bid is awarded, you'll get the carpet price. And that's.
Anything else, Member Woodward?
That's it. Thank you.
You just got carpet quoted, didn't you, Member Woodward? Huh? You just got carpet quoted, didn't you?
I got a lot of carpet.
Right.
Lots.
You are now my carpet guy. So I guess I have one question for you, Mr. Janikowski. I think you kind of answered the question when Member Noonan-Camp asked. So you only received one quote. It came in on the high side from what you were expecting, right? You were expecting about 100,000, but probably because everything is rising in cost.
Correct.
We came in a little bit higher. And I guess Member Woodward kind of talked to it. Were you surprised by the fact that we only got one? We had two people originally. Were you expecting more?
Yeah, I actually would have thought at least 2 or 3, just because I think I can't remember the amount of downloads we got on BidNet, but it looked promising when we first issued it, so.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Janikowski. Any other questions from council?
Mayor, can I make a comment before we vote?
Sure, Member Noonan-Camp.
So this one is giving me some heartburn.
We're not, actually, if we can make a motion before we
Okay.
get to comments.
Yep, thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve 11C1?
I'll move.
Thank you, Member Wood.
11C1.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second? I'll second it. Open up to comments, Member Noonan-Camp.
Thank you, Mayor. So my concern with this, and I want to be clear, I was not on council when this was approved in the budget, and so I understand that I'm coming into this late in the game and that we're here to discuss this contract. But if I can just zoom out for one moment, I have a hard time approving such a large expenditure for a building that I feel very uncertain about the future of at this point in time. And while I think that we need to continue investing in this building to ensure things like health and safety, which I think is what we did earlier tonight with approving lights in the parking garage, and what I think will be future requests from the library for things like new emergency exits and things that I strongly support, this proposal with only one bid coming in on the high side in a building that I don't feel confident investing in is a challenge for me. And I will say, I went to the library today and I walked the entire thing to see how bad is the carpet. Is it just horrible and I didn't realize it? And there are 3 spots where it's patched in the back, and I think I saw one next to the entryway. And yeah, it doesn't look new, but it, to me, does not look like $130,000 investment at this point in time. And I think that, if we could get those pieces patched better and in a more aesthetic way, I'd be fine with that. And this isn't necessarily that I'm a no for this forever, but it feels a little premature for me, especially with a bid that I don't feel great about. So I'm going to be a no tonight. I understand that members of this body have already approved this expenditure, but I want to explain my vote.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Any other comments from council?
Councilmember Wink has her
Yes,
hand
Member
up.
Wink.
Thank you. The $130,000 for the maintenance of public health and well-being is enough. And this council, the previous council also recognized that the aesthetics are sure great and welcoming. It's a first point of contact for a lot of individuals coming into our city. It's right there at the Englewood Light Rail. However, what we cannot see when we're walking around looking at patches on the ground are what are born and existing and living and airborne, just what exists within carpet that has long extended its shelf life. And so let's be mindful of the limitation of what we believe we see with our eyeballs constituting what actually is, and what the science behind having a shelf life to a product like carpet. Especially knowing what I've known about the history of certain activity in this building. And so, yes, there is conversation about the future of that building, but I think to believe that $130,000, not that that's zero and we should fling away money for no reason, but there is more than sufficient reason for this expenditure. Primarily, to me, it's very clear as a matter of supporting health and wellness, not just of our team of dedicated libraries staff that are there day in and day out, but our patrons. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Member Wink. Any other comments from council? Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Donikowski. I want to go back to questions, if that's okay, in follow-up to these council members' suggestions. Was there any study on the health? I mean, I know you said there were concerns that maybe there are some allergens and other things in the current carpet. Is there? But you did say in your presentation that aesthetics was the kind of the driving force behind this. Did you do any testing or testing the carpet to see if it has contamination or any kind of problems with it in terms of health?
No, we didn't do any testing of that nature.
Is that just an assumption at this point that it probably has contamination in it, or a lifespan kind of a situation with carpet?
Based on the public use and just the duration that the carpet has been in place. And then
Member Woodward said that he thought this was not the first time this has been replaced. So is there a way we could do some research and find out exactly the age of the carpet? Because I think I'm kind of with Member Noonenkamp on this, especially if it doesn't turn out to be as old as we initially thought. If Member Woodward's right and this is not 20 years old, but I don't know, 8 or 10 or 12 years old or something like that, to me that kind of changes the conversation. I don't know, is that something we would be could we possibly find that out before we take a final vote on this? I don't know where council's landing on this.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Member Woodward, did you have something to add, or?
Yes, on the motion. Just to answer part of Mayor Pro Tem, or Member Anderson's point, either way, if it's 20 years or when it went in kind of the span of when I believe it went in, it's past its useful life. It's way past its warranty. It's held up good for however long it's been there. So in just doing the numbers and what you had said, approximately 70,000 feet, $1.89 a foot isn't a bad price, isn't bad at all, especially when you consider that libraries are very special when you have to move bookcases and that sort of thing. It's totally different than just going into a raw space, vacant area and laying carpet.
I will add that part of the price is to move the existing bookshelves in a matter that they can replace the carpet underneath those bookshelves. So there'll be 100% coverage. You won't see patches like included in the slide. It'll be 100% new flooring. So that's
and stay open at the same time. So that's, a real plus. I had also was thinking about, gee whiz, should we be replacing carpet if we may not be here? But we don't know how long that will be before that decision is made, or at least I don't have any concept of when that decision will be made. So I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Russell.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. I greatly appreciate it. I do concur with Councilmember Wink. If anybody's ever had a vacuum cleaner salesman out to your house to show you how dirty carpet is, and that accumulates in a family home at a quick rate, when you're in a commercial building, there is a lot of dirt that gets in there. It doesn't matter how good you sweep it. I actually think that because it's a commercial building and pretty well trafficked, I do think it's wise to spend the money, and I do agree with Councilmember Woodward that $1.89 a square foot is a reasonable price for that much, and I do think that's something that we should go ahead and move forward with. I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other comments from council? Member Noonan-Camp.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate that I'm not opposed to this in its concept, right? But as Member Woodward just said, we have no concept of when we will make a decision on this, or what the future of this building is. And I would like to have a concept of that decision before I make this one, because if that's something that we could decide on quite quickly, I don't want to feel like we just invested all of this money, it may be unwisely. And so I want the library staff to work in a place that they feel proud of and that they feel safe and healthy in. And I also am balancing all of the resources that I'm accountable for in this city. And so if this is something that once we have a little bit of a clearer idea, and I would like to have a clearer idea of the future of this building sooner rather than later, that this could come back. I think I'm going to be outvoted, but I would support that, or maybe even a scaled down version. But right now, it just feels unwise to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Any other comments from council? I'll weigh in as well. Mr. Donikowski, thank you very much for the presentation tonight and taking us through this. Honestly, whenever I had the same similar questions as other members of council in terms of, you know, how much longer are we going to be in this building? As you know, would it be part of the redevelopment? Even with the earlier item in terms of the lighting, when I first was made aware that this is going to be coming up, like I don't want to start putting additional items or additional dollars towards these items, the lighting, the carpet, all of this. To me is just I'm just uneasy about putting that money towards it. But we've been doing it over the course of, you know, the past year. We did it with the AV systems here within council chambers, where we know that we won't be able to move them over to, you know, our future state in terms of having our council meetings. So ultimately, I just kept going back and forth on this all day. I'm actually going to vote in favor of this today because I do think that this is something that, obviously, we want to make the library more aesthetically pleasing for people. We talked about just doing many things for the libraries over the past month in terms of just the staffing issues. So we are seeing the importance of providing services to our public, and if additional carpeting and all of that can bring additional people to the library, I'm all for it. So although I'm a little worried about the price tag and only having one contract come up, I think just Member Woodward's comments tonight in terms of just what the cost is and the fact that it's not too bad of a price in terms of his estimation, I decided that I will be voting in favor of that tonight. So,
Mayor, I'm not sure if Councilmember Wink has her hand up again, or perhaps not.
Thank you, Clerk. I forgot to lower it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, if no other comments from council, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Nay.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Noonan-Camp.
Thank you very much for your presentation today, Mr. Donikowski. Now moving on to 11C2, approval of the EDDA budget. Redevelopment Manager Dan Porumba and Executive Director of the EDDA Authority, Hillary Portel. And our Treasurer as well, Mr. Brad Nixon. Good evening.
Good evening. I was just going to introduce Brad Nixon.
Did you see how I hesitated? I couldn't remember.
You're on it. You're on it.
I couldn't remember your first name, Brad.
Treasurer of our Board of Directors.
Sorry to take you off guard there a little bit. Really, I just wanted to kind of kick this off, just some comments from the board. First of all, last year was our kind of beginning year right out of the chute, and we were pleased with the progress that we made in the initial year. We really have a strong sense of responsibility towards what the electorate asked us to do, and we really want to continue on in that same fashion and what we're continuing on with this year. This year's been a little bit of a challenge for budgeting because it's a new thing for us to understand what the revenue is going to look like coming from the county and even from the city. So we've done our best at being able to forecast what we think that's going to be and put together a responsible budget that kind of reflects what that will look like income-wise, and then the projects that we have going out on the other side. The board did approve the budget that Hillary's going to talk about, as well as what you have in your packets there. Thank you for your support in kicking off the TIFs, for us to be able to have the revenue to be able to do these things, as well as approving the loan agreement that you did here just a few moments ago. You know, crucial to our work really is those things that kind of sets up the basis for us to be able to go forward. So your support is very much helpful. For us, I think, you know, the responsibility of carrying forward is a thing that we talk about often, but we also like to take an entrepreneurial approach to how we do these things in conjunction with the city. So with that, Hillary can take it over.
Let's see. Oh. Okay, now I know how to work this thing. Okay, I just wanted to do a quick review for those of you who are new to council. The Inglewood Downtown Plan was adopted last September by City Council. It sets forth a long-term vision and goals for the downtown district. The Inglewood DDA is authorized by downtown electors, City Council, and state statute to implement the downtown plan through our annual operational plans. We like to say we work to make downtown Inglewood more economically vibrant, connected, safe, and green. Really what that's about is making downtown Inglewood a great place for the local community. If we make it a good place for people, it will be a good place for local business, and visitors will want to come here, and more businesses will want to invest here. As part of the downtown planning effort in 2020, a community-wide e-survey was administered with about 300 respondents, and their top most important improvements listed by the respondents were: number 1, enhance the physical environment downtown; number 2, make downtown more bike and pedestrian friendly and accessible; number 3, improve the safety of downtown, including better lighting, safer crosswalks, etc. Number 4, redevelop city center with mixed uses and more density, and lots of comments about downtown parking. So our proposed budget and operational plan for this year address these community priorities, often in tight partnership with the city. So this slide should look familiar. We're following the same format as city departments follow during their annual budget cycles. We're a little off cycle this year, but we will be participating this summer with 2023 planning along with the other city departments. This graphic shows an organization that is ramping up fairly quickly to become fully operational. In 2021, we were in startup mode, setting up basic systems, agreements, and services, basic marketing, and securing grant funding for our first small project. Our budget was about $200,000 last year. This year, it's about implementation and really activating, undertaking several projects, and preparing for future TIF investments. Our projected revenues at the end of December were about $746,000. What we know today is our 2022 revenue sources are $150,000 from CDOT through a Revitalizing Main Streets grant, a $150,000 loan from the City of Inglewood as of tonight. Thank you again for that. Really helps us. In terms of property tax increment from Arapahoe County, it looks like that'll come in at about $380,000, which is a little less than we had projected. Sales tax increment from the city, we really won't know until the end of the year after the base year amount is already collected by the city, so we're not really counting on it this year. That leaves a shortfall of about $65,000. We'll be discussing this with the board tomorrow. looking at adjusting our contingency, perhaps our first debt service payment back to the city, and trimming the budget in non-essential areas. In terms of the expenditure categories, under administrative, about 54% of this amount is part-time contract staff. We have 1.25 FTEs running the Inglewood DDA this year. The rest of it is legal counseling, financial advising, insurance, and urban design assistance. In terms of services, we provide basic marketing services to support the downtown program and supplementary maintenance of downtown public spaces in coordination with the with the Parks Department. This will increase over time as we start to assume long-term maintenance of public improvements that are part of the downtown plan. Projects for this year really make an effort to leverage resources and offset costs that the city has committed to downtown projects. This also will increase over time as we undertake projects aligned with the downtown plan. Debt service is a line item starting this year to start making progress repaying the loan amount to the city. The enhancements or the additional costs this year over last year include increased contract staffing, increased legal and financial services, supplementary maintenance in more downtown areas, additional projects, increased event funding, debt service on the city loan, and a contingency. And here's a breakout of these additional costs. For contract staff, we're recommending increasing the executive director role from 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week, and increasing the administrative assistant's role from 15 hours a week to 20 hours a week. So again, that's about a 1.25 FTE. Important to remember that these are independent contractors who provide their own taxes, insurance, benefits, equipment, and office space. They're not salaried employees. This gives us a fair amount of flexibility to manage our staff commitments in response to our project needs. We need to add a little bit in professional services. On an ongoing basis, we're going to be looking for a financial advisor to help with tax increment finance planning and investment analysis. And on a one-time basis, we're increasing our legal services and financial services to support future agreements related to the City Center redevelopment project. We're undertaking more supplementary maintenance downtown this year along South Broadway, Old Hamden, the two Paseos, the Lincoln Lot, the Little Dry Creek Plaza, and refreshing the paint and minor repairs to the Broadway flower art sculptures in the district. We're adding extra funds to support downtown events that are being produced by other parties. That keeps a sense of liveliness and friendliness going on downtown. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about projects in the next slide. We'd like to pay up to $153,000 on the $300,000 loan this year. We'd like to take a big chunk out of it early on and not take the full 7 years to repay that debt. And then we have built in a contingency for unanticipated costs and opportunities. I'm just gonna figure out how to get this clicker right tonight. Okay, the projects for 2022 start with the Paseo and Crosswalk Enhancement projects. That's a small but impactful one. I like to say that small improvements matter in downtown work because people notice them and they project a sense that somebody is championing the area, somebody cares about it and is inviting you there. In addition to undertaking that project, we've already done some grant writing with the Public Works Department to support an additional grant-funded hawk signal at that crosswalk to make it even safer for pedestrians who are coming and going in any number of ways. That's about a $200,000 grant ask, another CDOT one, so cross your fingers, that one's has been submitted. Old Hamden Public Improvements will be led by the Public Works Department with the DDA supporting community outreach, potentially contributing toward a local match for a federal transportation funding ask later in the spring, and then planning for long-term maintenance for public improvements along Hamden. Lights on Broadway, this has been something people have wanted to try for a long time, whether it's string lights over the street or some kind of permanent lighting enhancement to the traditional Main Street portion of downtown along South Broadway. We'll be doing that in conjunction with some streetscape planning that the Public Works Department has budgeted for later this year. We'd like to undertake a parking and microtransit study for South Broadway and the wellness districts to assess current and future parking capacity and management for all modes of transportation, and looking at things like electrical vehicle charging stations and where those would be located downtown. We'd also like to look at the feasibility for the EDDA to one day take over management of the Inglewood Trolley as a microtransit service to the downtown area. And the last project is a feasibility study for the Little Dry Creek Greenway project. And this is something that's been in a number of city plans over the years. And the idea is to daylight Little Dry Creek the way it used to be before Cinderella City, before City Center. It used to go up to the city park and then head down into the Platte River. Sorry, the Platte River. We would like to look at the feasibility of doing that, daylighting the creek and putting a multimodal path along it that would connect down to the train station and the Platte River and the regional trail network there. It would add a major east-west connector connecting all three of the downtown areas, a new green infrastructure piece, and a new community amenity that honors the past. And with that, I'd like to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Portel. Any questions from council? Member Woodward?
Yeah, I heard you say, I believe, refreshing the paint on the flowers. Would you be going back to the artist on that?
Yeah, in fact, he would be leading that effort and providing all the materials.
Great, thank you. And regarding the paseos and the changing of the light, I was watching the news last night and I saw, I believe it was in Denver, I'm sure it was in Denver, and I think it was either through CDOT or Denver Traffic or something. They were putting up signs that were neon safety signs for pedestrians, walking signs, that, as I understood it in the news, they're gonna try and start getting those in different places in the state because the number of pedestrian fatalities over the last few years in the state. It'd be real interesting. I mean, they were really nice neon signs that, you know, got your attention, and right there at the walkway and at the paseos would be pretty neat place to do it, I think it would.
We will certainly research that. In general, the majority of pedestrian accidents and injuries and fatalities occur in these higher speed corridors like South Broadway.
Yep. I think Broadway is one waiting to happen, I'm afraid.
Anything else, Member Woodward?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem?
There's another aspect of public safety that I don't see directly addressed here, which is that of crime. Some downtown development authorities in other jurisdictions have partnered with the city or hired private security or done other things in response to perceptions that their particular area was not fully safe. We heard the subject of crime come up earlier this evening citywide. Does the DDA have plans in the future to address physical safety from incidents that are caused by other people, like crime?
Well, we're certainly a liaison to the police department, and we need to work directly with them to determine where the crime hotspots and patterns are. I haven't gotten to that layer of this onion quite yet, but the first way we're addressing the issue of crime and safety is in the the cleanup, the supplementary maintenance, taking care of, trash, graffiti, grit, on sidewalks and in public plazas, making the spaces feel cared for and as though somebody's watching. It's the places that feel neglected and left behind that tend to draw nuisance activity.
So on that note, your project's budget for that type of maintenance, $9,800 for supplementary maintenance. How often do we anticipate that type of thing would occur in the downtown area with that $9,800 budget?
That's $9,800 additional this year, so it's $13,000 total. Again, this is in coordination with the Parks Department, so we're planning, one moment, let me get to my notes on the maintenance. Spring and fall spot cleanups along South Broadway and Old Hampton. That's really not the street, but the sidewalks, the utility boxes, the street lighting, things like trash cans, things like that. Spring and fall on the Paseos. Summer for the Lincoln lot. Spring, fall, and winter for the Little Dry Creek Plaza. And then the Broadway Flower Art project is planned for April or May in coordination with the planting of the pots.
Okay, so when you say spring and fall, does that indicate all spring and fall long, or does that like one day in when spring starts and one day when fall starts? Or?
One time through.
Okay.
Because in between, so I work with Dave Lee in the Parks Department. In between, his crews are doing what their normally scheduled maintenance is.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C2?
I move to approve 11C2.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem.
So realizing that this project is in its infancy, looking at this budget, one of the things that causes me pause that I would like to see a change in the future is we have $745,875 spent, and of that money, we're spending over $400,000 on administrative and debt service. These are items that in some way support the system, but they're not providing direct services for that area from at least from my perspective. I think the DDA would be most effective if it can quickly start providing services in the zone that it's working in. So that would be my encouragement for the future budgets. I'm not uncomfortable with this budget to the point where I'm going to vote against it, but when subsequent budgets come in front of me, I would like to see more applied directly to the mission of the DDA as opposed to managing the administrative overhead.
You will.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments? Member Woodward.
Yeah, I will be voting for this, and I just hope when you do the trash cans or do some of those things, you just put EDA on it or the full name so people know who is providing it and there's some visibility, some advertising for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any other comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, Director Portel and Mr. Nixon for the presentation tonight. I hesitated again. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Moving on to 11C3, the adoption of Title VI plan. Director of Public Works, Maria DeAndre is here to talk about the Title VI plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So just very briefly, we're coming to you tonight to present this Title VI plan. And the intent of this is to continue to be able to receive federal assistance. And in our specific case, the Federal Highway Administration requires that we have a plan of this type on record adopted by the City Council so that we can continue to receive that federal assistance. And the basic reasoning for this is to be able to encourage and ensure public participation on all project development. So if we do have federal funds for a particular project, for example, the 285 and Broadway interchange, the Federal Highway Administration wants to ensure that we're not in any way restricting people based on race, color, national origin, age, gender, or disability. So this plan was developed by staff. I looked at other examples from around Colorado, specifically Larimer County, Arapahoe County, as well as a couple of other organizations who already have this in place and basically developed it from there. And again, as that subrecipient, the Public Works Department is, through this document, is ensuring that we're going to comply with all federal and state laws related to those statuses. And basically, when it comes down to it, ensure, for example, that someone with limited English proficiency, that we'd have an interpreter at a meeting, or we provide materials in an alternate language. We did that recently, just this year with the dual-sided notices for street sweeping. So even though that's not a federally recognized program, we're still trying to do that to ensure that everybody has access. Similarly, if someone's hard of hearing, that we would provide alternate listening devices or somebody perhaps that could do sign language at a meeting. And we still continue to do a lot of mailers. So we know that not everyone has access to a computer or their cell phone, and so providing those written documents via the mail is still an important means of communication. So with that, again, the Title VI plan must be adopted in order to be eligible for federal grant funding. We are going this summer into another round of federal transportation grant funding. And with that, I would recommend approval. There are a couple of notations. I noticed that the address for CDOT is incorrect on page 17, and there's a couple of incorrect references to the Public Works Department that I'll correct. And so with those small modifications, I would recommend approval. And I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from council? Yes, Member Russell.
Thank you. So is the main reason we move forward with this is because of the CDOT gift of land?
No, that has nothing.
That has nothing to do with this?
No. This is, I think, anticipating the future, this upcoming round of federal funding that we're going to be potentially applying for and receiving later this summer.
Because of the Hampden project, or?
Correct, yeah. We're considering the Old Hampton project as well as potentially projects along Broadway that we would submit.
Okay, thank you. And I did see the
errors.
The errors. I highlighted a bunch of them, so
okay.
Anyway, I appreciate you taking care of that.
Thank you, Member
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C2 or C3?
I move to approve 11C3.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonenkamp. Any comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much, Director DeAndre. Moving on to 11C4. What we got tonight is City Manager. Tonight we have City Manager Sean Lewis. He's here to present amending the appropriations in the City 2022 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear? Yes.
Yep.
I'm just going to give a brief high-level overview of this, then we have staff both on the call and in the room that can answer any technical questions. But the total budget amendment that's requested is $2.9 million and change. And just to let you know, of that 2.9, about 1.1 million is what will be taken from unassigned fund balance. the vast majority of what we are asking for in a budget amendment is already in the budget. It just needs to be reallocated to other funds. So I'll start with a high-level overview, starting with the one that I've probably spent the most time in one-on-ones talking to you all about, and that is the $206,000 for wage compression and salary adjustments. As you know, in 2020, we conducted a salary and wage study, and we are proposing taking all employees who are below 90% of the midpoint of their range to 90%. So you budgeted $200,000 for that. It takes about another $6,000 with benefits, et cetera. And so we're asking for $6,803 from unassigned fund balance. The rest is already in your budget. Moving on to the next item, which is the Community Development Department. It's the Economic Plan, which we are putting together. We did an RFP for that, thinking that that would come in more in the $25,000 range. That's coming in at about $35,000 over that. Is what the average cost overrun is. So we are asking for some funds from unassigned to pay for that cost overrun. Next, we have the Communications Department. This, again, was in your 2021 budget, but the Communications Department was not able to spend this because of the Historic Preservation Commission wanting to really take their time creating those neighborhood boundaries, the neighborhood names, and so they were not able to deploy the signage that is going to be, we hope to launch this year, to help neighborhoods really put up some attractive signage in their neighborhoods. So we are asking that that be taken from the, what would have otherwise just gone into the unassigned fund balance. The the $54,700 is for, to add a half FTE to library staff. As you know, we have a number of part-time staff in the library. We really think one of the parts of really taking the library to the next step is adding some full-time staff. We hope to, in the future, be able to take maybe 2 part-time staffs and staff members to convert those into full-time. In this case, we are asking to add a half FTE to the library staff. Next, we have the $59,394, and that is for, this is one of 2 omissions or errors in the budget. We are transferring our OpenGov contract from finance to IT. In that transfer, the new capital improvement plan module of OpenGov, we did the $59,000 for that maintenance fee into the budget, so that is an error. The second error is that we have a supposed to be funded by both Public Works and the Utilities Department. We failed to bill both water and sewer funds for that, and so we need to correct that, which requires a budget amendment. And then the next one and final one is the biggie, and that is major cost overruns in the amount of $2.5 million for the for the Broadway and Hamden interchange. We have been doing, as you know, lots of on that. We're getting very close. We work closely with CDOT. The Public Works Department has really aggressive funding. We've gotten additional funding, an additional, I believe, $1.1 million from CDOT to help cover part of the cost overrun, but the costs and the pricing is still coming in very high. So we are asking for a reallocation of a number of funds. You can see the breakdown there of projects. Some of them are older projects that we just have had legacy accounts. Others are one that we came in under budget for. And so we've identified, over, looks like about $1.5 million for that, but we do need an additional $1.1 million from the unassigned fund balance for to make up the difference for the Broadway interchange. Our staff who can answer technical questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, City Manager Lewis. Any questions from council? Member Russell.
Thank you. I have some grave concerns about this. This council, most of us, spent the entire year last year doing this budget, and this is not just coming in one area. This is coming across the board. I think this council needs a list of all the changes that were made before the October meeting, and I want to know how that all fits into here. A budget supplemental is meant for 1 or 2 items, not to rearrange most of the budget. So I have a problem with this.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I address that?
Yes, City Manager.
There are a number of, well, one of the larger price tag items in here is the wage compression. You specifically did identify in the budget wage compression, 200,000. However, we cannot spend money out of contingency. Only council can reallocate that into departments so that we can then spend it where it's appropriate. And I also want to point out that Director DeAndre did just inform me that CDOT actually increased their contribution to the Broadway interchange by $2.3 million. So this represents our portion of that cost overrun.
We did know about the wage compression issue before we voted on the budget. Is that not correct?
We did, but it was a set aside of money in the contingency line item, knowing that we were going to have, be trying to address this, but not yet having a plan on exactly how to do that. So in deciding recently to go to 90% of the market, we believe that, corrects some of the worst of our employees who are really underpaid to the midpoint. But we did not know in October which departments would need to be increased by what amount.
And I'm not necessarily saying that I disagree with this, but I disagree that we're dealing with all of these at the same time instead of these things being brought forward. We're less than 2 months into 2022, and I just think that the council needs more documentation on some of these things. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Mayor Pro Tem.
The one thing that concerns me is the 285 interchange. We haven't even broken ground on it yet, and we're increasing our budget on it rather significantly. What is the chance that when we finally do go to break ground, we're going to be passing a $4 million supplemental so we can finish the project? Or, maybe 4 million, it's just a number I picked out of thin air, but you get the idea.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good question. I think we feel confident because we've prepared 2 cost estimates now using our current designer, Atkins. So they've gone back to CDOT unit prices as well as looked at other current jobs that have recently been bid to get a better cost estimate. That was required by CDOT when we were negotiating with them to increase our prices. So what we've been doing, and as City Manager Lewis just mentioned, we are also requesting additional funds from them. So their original contribution to the overall project was roughly $7.5 million in federal funds, $800,000 from CDOT, and then about $1.1 million from the city. So our prices have gone up. And then CDOT in this negotiation also requested that we do what's called a independent cost estimate. And so we had a private company, a third party, if you will, contractor prepare a cost estimate as well, look for any holes in the plans and the documents, and how would they potentially bid it. And so we feel pretty comfortable that we have a conservative number that we're going to go into bidding with. And that will happen probably in May. So we're just a couple months out.
So just to make sure I understand, we were being asked to approve an additional $2.5 million for this project. If CDOT's contribution increases based upon our request, we might not end up spending that $2.5 million?
No, that would be both us and us by $2.5 million, of which that, and then CDOT about $2.3 million. So our overall prices have gone up just under $5 million.
Okay, so the assumption here is that the CDOT money will come in.
Yes, we've received a letter to that extent. We're just finalizing the agreement, and you'll see that amendment to the IGA hopefully within the next month or so.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could also add.
Yes, City Manager.
In addition, of the 2.5, 1.39 of that is coming from existing projects. So we have found money essentially in capital funds, which has either left over, the project has been completed, or can be repurposed because we simply can't spend it this year. Like the South Broadway, we can only spend about half of our South Broadway streetscaping set aside. So I just want to, for the public in particular, 1.39 million of the of the 2.5 overage is coming from existing projects that we no longer need that funding for.
Thank you, City Manager. Any other questions from council? I do have a question, City Manager. It's about line items 5 and 6. Basically, the omission of 2 items that should have been on the budget but weren't on the budget. It sounds like the water fund and the sewer fund. The way that I'm understanding is that the money wasn't appropriated to both funds, but was the full amount appropriated or not? And then secondly, I guess I'm more concerned about just the fact that $60,000 was omitted from the capital projects fund. That should have been on there. To me, it sounds like it is like a ongoing expense. So how do we make sure that this doesn't happen into the future?
I can address the second one. I don't know if Director DeAndrea could address the first one. In regards to the second one, so that is a fee of $59,000 per year. It's an operating fee. The contract with OpenGov, so this is the capital project management software that you approved, runs through 2025. So this $59,000 will be built into the budget going forward every year. It's already been identified by the IT director to be something that's in the budget. It was an omission. That was a mistake that was just made via a miscommunication for this year, but it will be in the budget going forward. It's already in the draft that he's preparing.
So then OpenGov, the system that this is going to, should be fixing the issue in the future, since it is tracking all the capital projects. Is that what I'm understanding, or?
Yeah, I mean, so OpenGov, that's why we're doing it, right? Is to be able to track things more efficiently. So theoretically, things like this wouldn't happen or wouldn't fall through the cracks. But yeah, so that is a way to look at it.
And Director?
Yes, in regards to the position, this was, the position was fully budgeted within the 2022 budget. The half position for the stormwater was fully allocated. The other half was fully allocated within the water fund. But this position is specifically providing inspection for water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. So we want one person going out and doing inspections for all 3. And so it's just more of an allocation to the right enterprise fund of where that position should be funded from.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions from council? City Manager Lewis?
Mayor, feel free to tell me after this, don't do this again. But to Member Russell's point, in terms of how we bring amendments, I would like feedback maybe in our one-on-ones or from council tonight. Would you prefer 4, say? I think it was 4 or 5. So we will be bringing rather large budget amendments, but doing it at less regularity. So our next one would be in April, for instance, but 2 potentially would be larger. So I would just love some feedback at some point from council on whether you want regularly occurring smaller amendments or larger amendments that we kind of stack up and then bring to you less regularly.
Thank you, City Manager. If no, Member Russell.
So can I ask, why are we anticipating that a budget supplemental will come in April?
Well, again, we're responding to I think it was just the last council and maybe the council before that said, stop bringing us so many budget amendments all the time. Let them kind of stack up so we only have to do 4 or 5 a year. So that's been the strategy that staff is following now. But to your point, Member Russell, if you'd like us to bring smaller ones on a regular basis, we can certainly do that too.
Thank you.
Member Woodward.
I would think that if we got them quarterly, that's good. Accepting something that may be time is of the essence to do something. So, my thought.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Mayor Pro Tem.
I think maybe Member Russell's question was a little more philosophical in nature, which is, if I heard it correctly, why we do budget amendments at all, and why they're coming forward on a regular basis, or they're anticipated to be coming forward throughout the cycle. Perhaps you could elaborate a little bit more on that. The idea would be that we would shoot for a perfect budget every year, know exactly how much we're going to spend, and then go spend it. But when we're doing an amendment, that's indicative that that is not exactly what happened.
Right, and I'm sure a finance director could answer this much more eloquently than I. But when you think about a general fund budget of roughly $60 million, when you throw in the enterprise funds, we're well over $100 million. we are going to have budget amendments. There is no city that doesn't bring budget amendments on a regular basis to their council. That's simply the nature of both municipal finance and frankly corporate finance. And so we, on budgets that are that large, we will need to bring you budget amendments from time to time. I don't love that we have two that are because of errors, either clerical or oversights in this list. But for the most part, most of this money simply needs to be reallocated into the proper fund rather than, we're rating our unassigned fund balance, which, by the way, is large and growing again. But we will always try to bring the best budget we possibly can, but we have, for the history of the city, as far as a modern history, have brought budget amendments to council on a regular basis, because when we're talking that much money, it's virtually impossible to have that all in the right pot in October of every year.
Thank you. Member Russell.
And with that being said, I do appreciate that, and I do understand that with a budget of that size, but probably limiting the amount so it's more understandable, instead of just inundating us all at once. And I think some of the things that when the supplementals come, a lot of times there's not a lot of discussion going on because there's not really the preparation that maybe happens in the budget. I felt like the budget process at the end, where we were going through and deciding what we do, what we add, and what we take out, was great. Are any of these things that we're doing tonight changing back any of the things that we changed then?
I think that the one that is probably, I think that the FTE, as staff will attest to, do not like doing mid-year adjustments, particularly in the total FTE count of the city. So I would say to some extent that one is, not what we've explained to you during the budget process. It is an addition that, we've added a security guard to the library, and really we're responding to library staff telling us that this is a need. That's probably a need we could have identified in the budget process, but the rest of these, no, I don't think they're inconsistent with anything we shared with council during the budget process.
Okay, I actually would like to see it in smaller bites, so council can look at it in more detail. And another thing that I think we need to keep in mind is it's not always just the salary. People work someplace where they love to go to work, and if we don't know what the real problem is, and we just keep throwing money at it, that might not be the problem. So I think there's some discussions that council needs to have with some of this also.
Thank you, Member Russell, and I totally agree with you. I would mention we were simply able to do nothing as part of the 2021, other than what I would consider cost of living adjustment that was required by our collective bargaining units. And in 2020, the only thing we could afford with the uncertainty of COVID was to bring 22 employees to the minimum of the range. So we have done nothing to bring people to market for 2 years. And while we are, basically investing in our employees $200,000, that's only going to affect about 45 employees. And frankly, it's the very minimum that we could possibly do. When we do the comp and class study that will have 2022 data, I would just prepare council now, it will be a significant amount of money to bring us anywhere close to the midpoint. Even if we try to do 95% of the midpoint, it is going to be a huge number when that study comes back. So I very much appreciate your point. We are working on organizational culture very heavily. We've got a new, small pot of funding for bonuses. But the fact is this 200,000, which was planned for, minus the 6,000 overrun, is the very minimum that we could do to bring people only up to 90% of what their peers in other cities are making.
So everybody got a 3.5% raise, correct? So some of the people didn't necessarily need that to bring them up. What about the ones that got it? Did it touch that at all?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So I guess the question is, so we did give everyone in the city a raise of 3.5%. So what's gonna happen when you bring people up to wherever you think they need to be? Then are they still getting a raise from that?
Yes, so the 3.5 was across the board for all employees, including part-time. So does that answer your question? I mean, it gets us a little closer to market, I suppose you could say, but when you consider the fact that we haven't done a salary survey since 2020, we are so far behind in terms of where the midpoint actually is. I think the one exception to that is, written into the contract, the municipal court judge has, a market analysis that he has asked for each year with his own benchmark cities. The other exception is the EPBA, which has, as part of their negotiations, asked for a set of benchmark cities. And so they have a little bit different, but frankly, everyone's going to be behind. I'm very confident in that. And it's just a matter of fact that we've been able to do some cost of living adjustments, but we have made no progress in terms of moving people to the market of what their peers in other cities are getting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other questions from council? If not, can I get a motion to approve 11C4?
I'll move 11C4.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any comment from council? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 12, starting off with Mayor's Choice. I really only have one item for tonight, and this was brought up during the mayor-managers meetings over, I want to say over the past couple sessions, but just it's been brought up in terms of finding a month, whether it's June or July, where we would only have 2 meetings, both council meetings, one at the beginning of the month and one at the end of the month. Obviously, I'll let City Manager Lewis speak a little bit to it, but obviously my concern there would be that if there was too many items on the agenda where we wouldn't be able to do our job properly, that would be my concern, but I would be in favor of the idea if City Manager Lewis, if you wanted to kind of speak a little bit more about the project. I think during the last mayor-manager meeting, we were thinking that July probably makes a lot more sense because June is already looking a little busy, so. City Manager Lewis. And I probably didn't prepare you for this item, so. We do have a podium that works.
Thank you. You did actually remind me that this was coming. So I had just brought to the mayor-manager meeting the fact that there are many cities in the metro area that do try to take kind of a summer break. Our charter is somewhat unique in that we must meet at least 2 times per month. And so we had just talked during mayor-manager meeting about using the first week and the last week of the month, sometime in the summer, June, July, August, to say we'll probably have a little longer meetings on those, but try to take the intervening, few weeks off. And so this was just something that actually a colleague in another city brought to me, and I, in doing research, found out that many cities do this. And in responding to members Anderson and others who have expressed their like of the break in December, this would be kind of a mid-year break as well.
Thank you, City Manager Lewis. And I guess in terms of tonight, when we get around to council's choice, if you could just weigh in, I would be in favor of the idea as long as it doesn't impede in our work. So I would be happy to explore it, and I'm sure that at some point in May or so, we would probably have a little bit more clarity about whether or not July would work for that. But I would be in favor of at least exploring the idea. So nothing else from me for Mayor's Choice. I'll kick it off for Council Member's Choice. Anybody want to start?
Member Wink does.
Member Wink kicks off.
Thank you, Mayor. last week on February 16, I attended the, I beg your pardon, may I do my board/commission update?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I attended the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, very well attended meeting. They talked about a number of very important topics. It's sort of, it was a little surprising to remember how new that group was, given what they've accomplished so far and how well they've melded together. I'll just highlight a few. They're working steadily on the neighborhood boundary designations, leveraging the Arapahoe County Register and using a series of metrics to form those designations. It was really interesting to listen to, and I think they're doing a really fantastic job with it. The 2-year terms for chair and vice chair had expired. So as of last week's meeting on February 16, the group has 2 new leaders. Matt Crabtree is now the chair, and Cash Parker is the vice chair. We welcomed new member Mary Miles, who was mentioned earlier as a new member of one of our boards and commissions. And let's see. Very interesting. The group has, oh no, not that group, but so we have our city volunteer group, right? To which I'm speaking, the Historic Preservation Commission. And of course, we know about the existing city, Doug Cohn-led citizen group, the Historic Preservation Society. That society has now changed their name. It just came up in our meeting. So their name is now Historic in Englewood. So FYI, and it's simply a DBA under the nuts and bolts of their organization. The name is as it was at present, but if you hear Historic Englewood, that's what was formerly known as the Englewood Historic Preservation Society, FYI. There'll be no Historic Englewood lecture from that group this month. Sorry, I'm mixing a little bit there. And then an interesting lecture is coming up to be given by the new chair, Matt Crabtree. And it's a talk on Tesla. Some of you may have already seen it. He's apparently well known for this Tesla talk. And it will be given at the Carson Nature Center at 3000 Nature Drive, just west of the Aspen Grove shopping center. I think those are the highlights. And yes, I was speaking to both groups, and that topic sort of came up because Matt Crabtree, the now chair of the city volunteer group, is also a member of the board of the Historic Englewood, the former society. So some of the conversation sort of lent itself to both groups. That's why I touched on both. But very good meeting, great group. Thank you.
Anything else, Member Wink?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Do you want to weigh in on the July recess? Possibly.
Oof, yeah, sure. I could go either way. I don't have any strong feelings to say a strong yes or no at this point. I'm certainly open to be persuaded by my 6 fellow council members and following best practice and what we know to work in cities and benefit them. So the input from our administrative team as well. But yeah, no feeling either way right now.
Thank you, Member Wink. And actually, for council member's choice, I would just start over there on Member Russell's end. Member Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, weighing in. As long as it does not interfere with council, I mean, I already know that a lot of the public thinks we don't do anything up here, so, but I don't want to neglect the city, and nor do I want to be here till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because we took a couple days off. So anyway, so weighing in on that, then I have a couple of things. I have a very major concern because I had heard this from a person 3 or 4 days ago, and then I heard it again this morning. about apparently there's some perception in the public that we are so tied up with lawsuits that the police can't do their job. And so if that's the perception that people in the community have, that is problematic. So I guess I would like to know if there's any truth to that. I mean, I already know some things about, I understand about the lawsuits, but is there anything that's tying the police's hands from helping people out, especially in the business areas, protecting people? That is becoming a concern. And along with that, I would like to, I mean, I already know that I've done a council request for crime statistics in the city center area, but Chris Dewis made some statements today, and I would like more information on those statistics as well. Because if 1 in 16 people in Inglewood could be the victim of a serious crime, that's problematic, and this council needs to do something to address that. Then the other question that I have, council got an email from a citizen this week about the utility bill, about putting single hauler trash survey in the utility bill rather than social media. I do have some concerns that once we post on social media, and there were some information in there that there are people outside the city getting the surveys, and people have done more than one survey because it's going out on social media and in different ways. Personally, I do not believe that we could have a statistically accurate survey by getting people to answer the survey more than once. It seems to me like the surveys would become stacked. And the truth is, why couldn't we put it in the utility bill? That goes to every single household in the city. So, I mean, that doesn't have to be answered right now. So, if we could get an answer to that, can we back off on some of the things that we've done with publishing this in all different areas? I mean, there was some information that it would go to the Malley Center and to the rec center. There are people out there that would answer the survey a lot of times.
City Manager Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have put the paper copies of the survey at all of the rec center, the Malley Center here in the library, and so those are out. This is very similar to the process that was used for the off-leash dogs, with the exception of we added to the off-leash dog the statistically valid, I believe is the right term, survey that Polco did for us. What's interesting, I think, about that particular process was that the results of the Polco survey were very similar to the survey work that was done on social media. And what we found was, unless there's a compelling reason for people outside the city to weigh in on, a topic within Inglewood, the likelihood of someone taking the time to do that was quite low. So, those results were somewhat similar. We can certainly, discuss extending the timeline. The limiting factor there is the amount of time that the RFP, the bids that we have from the two haulers, will be good for. And I don't have that date right now, but if we were waiting for, let's say, the next billing cycle to get that in, giving another month, I don't know how compressed we would be up against that deadline, but we are planning to bring information about the results of the survey work to council April 18th.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other question about that also. Will we be getting information? I asked Director DeAndrea about information from Sheridan and especially Sheridan, because they do have single hauler trash and there's been some issues with that. So I'd like that information at the same time before we make the decision.
Yes, I believe that's the plan, is the experience of other cities like Sheridan who have gone through this in the recent past.
Okay, and the city of Littleton does not do single hauler trash, is that correct, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Member Woodward.
I just have two things tonight. The first one would be the public hearing and that site with the designation of Carnation. I think we were actually called the Carnation City. I thought that was really neat. And I was thinking of the Paseos and any other sites that come up. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't ask or talk about doing little designation signs like that in these different sites. At Paseos, they have it in the concrete, but with the remodel and stuff, putting up a little sign that you can really read it would be interesting, because that's quite the site. So that was one item, just possibility to talk about at a study session. The other one, I want to just talk about the park, Jason Park closing, and looking forward to the future. 2 out of the last 3 years, we've had drought seasons. The turf has been really worn. It was really worn this year. And I'm wondering if, instead of having to close it down in basically January to May, maybe we close it down for the month of November and let everybody know and, get everybody aware of it, that it'll be closed in the month of November and again in the month of February or something like that. So there is this time off on the turf to let it recover and then have people get their ability to get back onto it at times. And I don't know what those months would be, but I think it's worth talking to Parks and Recreation and Dave Lee on that type of program and just having the program, because I would expect that we'll probably continue to have droughts. That's it. Thank you.
Member Woodward, did you want to weigh in on July?
No, I don't.
You don't want to weigh in?
I don't want to weigh in. No, actually, right in the middle of that discussion, I've dropped this packet, tonight's packet on the floor, and I missed half of it. So I missed half of what you were saying.
Did you stub your toe?
Consciousness. And, oh, God.
It's all good.
Well, we'll come back to you on that then, Member Woodward. Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank City Manager Lewis and the mayor for bringing this idea of July up this early, because I think planning it early, if we were going to do something like that, planning it early is key to make sure we get everything on, that we need to on the agendas and, the month before, to kind of, so we don't stack up those two meetings too much, just really plan those agendas carefully and think kind of long-term about it. But yes, I would be very supportive of that, having 5 kids and having them be off school in the summer. It would be very advantageous to have some off time during July, or even if it was to be, if you could overlap months where you did meetings at the beginning of one month and meetings at the end of the next, to make sure you had the 2 meetings a month. I don't know if that would be possible too, if we wanted to get an extra week or something like that, but I don't want, I do think we don't want to give people the impression that we're not doing our job, but also, we need time to take a break and rethink things. It can be, it's possible to run into burnout and those kind of things. So I think it would be good for City Council to get a little break in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I think just one item for me tonight, and that is, I share Member Russell's concerns about crime, and I would like to see us do another study session where we have a more robust discussion on crime, and what we can do policy-wise, what we can't do policy-wise, what the challenges are relative to crime and policing in general in the city right now. Our city has a tradition of goodwill between the citizens and the police. And I want to see that tradition continue. And I think there are some things that if left unaddressed, that tradition could change in the near future. So I would like to see if I can get consensus for a future study session where we get a briefing on some of those challenges with policing. We had last week's study session where we discussed jail issues, but that's just one component of the problem. And I think that we can attack this from multiple angles and try to find some policy solutions to the problems that we're facing. So that is my one item tonight. I'm okay with vacation. In the past, I've admonished this council, both as a private citizen and as a member of the body, that meetings that go till midnight, we don't do our best work. So that would be my one caution there is the thing I want to make sure that we do consistently is turn out the best work product for the people we represent. And if taking 2 weeks of vacation in the summer helps us do that, great. But if it interferes with that, then we have a problem and I wouldn't be able to support it. So if we can manage the schedule, then let's go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Before we get to Member Nooncamp, if we want to weigh in on getting consensus on additional conversations on crime within the city. For it, yes. Looks like we have majority. And actually, I kind of want to add to it. I'm not sure if anybody read the op-ed this weekend with Mayor Hancock and Mayor Southers in the Denver Post, but they talked about some of the limitations they've seen due to recent legislation at the state level that they're seeing. So I would like to see that as part of the conversation as well, since it does seem like we have consensus on this. Nothing else. Member Nooncamp.
I don't have any items, but I can weigh in on the summer recess. I don't have strong feelings. I can go either way. I would be open to 1 week, 2 weeks. You know, if we're concerned about the timing, maybe abbreviating it. Selfishly, I would prefer June because I know I have an unavoidable absence in June, but I could go either way.
Thank you, Member Nooncamp. And yes, I'm in agreement with everybody here in terms of just being able to do our best work and not stacking the meetings previous to that. So nothing else from this council, so City Manager's choice.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items. First of all, I wanted to let council know that you had a study session planned for the WIFI loan. I'm going to be asking on Wednesday the Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem to consider waiving that study session. You all approved the loan application fee a year ago. You've had 3 presentations on it related, and so we are planning on bringing that back to you in March for approval, but feel free to give any of the 3 of us or the city attorney feedback on that. Next, the groundbreaking event for the stormwater phase 2. I want to make sure that you and the public know, and we are pushing this out on social media, will be March 1st at 4 p.m. We have put that on the City Council calendar. It'll be at South Lincoln Street and Union Avenue, and we hope to, really help tell the story of the work that's going on and the good work that this council has done in rate and fee studies, the good work that Public Works staff has done in the master planning. So we hope to both celebrate as well as inform with that. And then I do appreciate the request on the crime study session item. After speaking to members Noonencamp, Ward, and Russell over the last few weeks, I had given the police chief a heads up, and during my one-on-one today, he said, hey, just by the way, we're already working on a study session because we know it's probably coming. So he anticipated this, and he and his team are putting that together, and I'll make sure to add the restrictions because I don't think it's as much to Member Russell's point, lawsuits, as it is there is a sense among policing in Colorado that their hands have been a bit tied with some of the legislation. Some of that, is perception, some reality, but we definitely will include that in the presentation. And I believe that that's all I've got. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager Lewis. With that, we are now adjourned. It is 9:35. Have a great week, everyone.